I'll just sit out of this bit then.
Yeah, well, no, you just sit out of the podcast. I just wanted you here for moral support.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Sounds good.
Yeah. No, but I guess like that kind of like leads into the whole hardline stuff. But I guess that's where, you know, kind of like left New Zealand
for
a bit.
Maybe for you.
Well, for me anyway. Well, I met you at Hardline, didn't I?
No, you guys did like a road trip down, didn't you, in the Commodore?
When did I see? Oh, yeah, because I went home. You came over and started working on Hardline like the week after I left.
After you left. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a transition.
What I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a transition period. We'll talk about like when I went to Oz and then I pissed off and then you came and then we'll start talking about Hardline build from there. And then like there's a good bit. And then when I come back and you pick me up from the airport and then we'll go from there. So I'll tell my story and you tell your story and then we'll join stories.
As the podcast. That's because the podcast of the both of us would just start when we started together when I picked you up from the airport in Commodore.
No, it was you picked me up in the SUV.
Oh, no.
Boomerang on the Gold Coast.
Oh, that was before that, yeah. Yeah, we went up to Boomers for literally one weekend, like the weekend right before Hardline.
It wasn't even a weekend, it was a night. But yeah, go on, sorry.
Yeah, it was literally, it was on the weekend before for what we were there for, like not even probably, it was probably 24 hours pretty much.
Yeah, well, I got in there Saturday night because of all the flight cancellations and stuff like that. So I got there quite late.
What were you doing?
And then we went and quoted building a slopestyle course. It was going to be a silver level course. Dane's dad and Leroy's dad have been trying to get the funding together to actually build a legitimate silver slopestyle course in Oz to, well, I suppose have an actual silver course.
What are you talking about? We've got one, don't we?
Do we?
Up in Green Valleys? I thought that was supposed to be.
Was that
like
silver?
No, it's bronze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that was the whole thing. Yeah, because Dane's dad was having a bit of a chat about it, and like it's not just Dane, but there's quite a few slopestyle guys that we've got in Australia, and especially now that we've got Crankworks. Like half of the Crankworks series is in either Australia or New Zealand now, and there's no silver slopestyle events to even get you anywhere near competing at that level. So if you want to compete in your home country, you've got to go traveling through Europe to be able to get the points to do these events. So yeah, push in that direction, which I think is going to be pretty cool. So hopefully it all comes through. But yeah, I guess that line that we walked back still looks pretty good. We walked back and forth quite a few times and scouted different options and variability. So hopefully it all comes through.
Dude, the talent in slopestyle in Australia is unreal. Like, we've got young Raf Miller down here. I think it's Raf Miller. And he's fucking ripping.
Yeah.
And like, he's just built his own full wooden drop-in ramp. I think it's like 30 foot tall with an airbag and ramp and stuff. He's invested all his time and money into that.
It looks like legit.
Yeah. And it's all on him. Like, I'm pretty sure he worked and he built it. And he's just out of high school. So he must have just been like working. So it's unreal to see.
Yeah. Good on him. You can tell, like, even just in the last like month or whatever since he's had that thing set up, it's where like every second day I see a clip of him being like, learn a new trick, learn a new trick. Like, it's insane.
Who is this?
Raf Miller.
Raf Miller.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him a follow right now.
Everyone should, because he's up and coming. Not just because he's from SA. Like, I'll be doing some filming with him later in the year, I think.
Sick.
Got some ideas. But yeah, I think he's like sick. Going to be sick.
Yeah.
And then Dane's like another level already.
Yeah.
It's just sick to see.
Dane is like riding with Dane, like in real life, like, and riding the same features as he's tricking. I'm just like, and to watch how perfect he is with everything that he does is like just adds a whole nother layer of how good he is.
He's so calculated. Like I remember him we were at Highline last year and he was backflip canning or something off the Maiwald Hoel, which has heaps of time, but like he did like 6 or 7 run-ins and was literally just timing every single one and just calculating, and you could see him like almost been backflip thinking about throwing the can. It was super, super cool to see.
I think the other cool thing about Dane coming up and the way he's doing it is he's taking slopestyle very seriously, like an athlete. He's working out quite well. He's eating right. Like I stayed in his room when Baxter and I went up to the Gold Coast job while they were away. And you just see the posters on the wall and all that kind of stuff. Like you can see how invested he is in this sport, like trophies and that kind of stuff as well. Like he's dedicated, and I think like he's got such a good attitude. And even just the way he talks to people, super polite, like really nice, humble guy. And just an all-round good dude. So I think like the combination of that and not coming up like a cocky shit or anything like that, having that like athletic mindset and the calculation, all of those combinations, it's really cool to see. And I'm excited to see how he goes overseas. He's just headed for Europe now, so gearing up for the first event. I think they just got practice today or yesterday or something like that. So that's cool.
Yeah, I think he's at Dirt Masters, so which I think I saw some clips from practice this afternoon. So they must have been practicing within the last 24 hours, kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah. I saw some stuff from Tom Eistedt as well because I saw it from Dane first, and then so Tom Eistedt was there as well. I was like, oh, that's sick. So it'd be cool to see him like riding with some of those guys as well. I know he's pretty keen to do that. I think it's gonna be sick.
Yeah, did you guys but did he go to Crankworks in New Zealand? Or wasn't
Which one?
Did Dane go to Crankworks? Yeah.
No,
he doesn't have the points yet for Crankworks.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't think speed style is really like his avenue of the direction he wants to push. I think he just wants to be a big tricks guy. So
yeah, 100% just a tricks guy. And then Leroy's like a whole different beast.
Yeah,
it's so funny watching those two be friends, and it's like chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
Leroy was at Green Valley's like slopestyle national champs. Like he just came up on the Sunday just to watch, and I was like, why aren't you riding? He's like, I don't ride little bikes anymore. I just ride big bikes, big jumps.
I remember him talking about that because he came and stayed with me in Queenstown, and he was talking about selling his hardtail because he's like, I just don't really use it. I just want to ride my big bike all the time. Like and like him and Jaden as well, both like just loving it over here. Just trying to convince him to move over. You're like, well, I'm trying to convince everyone. Like it's just a phenomenal spot. But yeah, seeing those two over here thriving was a good time.
Are they still there?
No. They left ages ago. They were at your jam.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether they went back.
No, they came back well before that. No, they never came back over.
Oh.
Yeah,
hopefully I know Jaden back next summer.
I know Jaden listens, but he definitely needs to go and live there and just progress. Because he is so fucking talented.
Yep.
Like so talented.
He just also needs to stay out of the party scene if he moves to Queenstown.
You don't need to stay out of the party scene.
Bloke loves it.
He can party, that's for sure.
That bloke, he loves the beer, that's for sure.
Can we, while we're on this, can we just quickly take a minute to talk about the clip that blew up of both Jaden and Leroy flipping side by side on Dream Track?
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So if anyone hasn't seen it, go and have a look at their like Insta profile or whatever. But that jump is quite a narrow lip, and the two of those boys side by side for starters is so gnarly. And you can see
I wouldn't straight jump that next to someone.
No, No, I wouldn't even think about it. I can't believe that crossed their mind to do that.
I can.
No.
Yeah, I can 100% understand where they came from for that.
Yeah, only those two. Like there was a clip years ago that they did. They tried to do that in Whistler, and they both crashed. Like it wasn't that they even like came near each other; they just both synchronized crashed.
That's unreal.
Earn your second bottle, Jai.
No, the other one was leftovers from last night.
10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Leftovers from 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Hardline then.
Yeah.
I guess.
What do you want to know?
Yeah.
How did you guys get involved with the build?
Can we skip over that?
Skip over what?
How did you get involved with the
I don't really want to.
With the build?
Yeah,
I don't really want to talk about the building.
Yeah,
I'll talk about it. I'm keen. So
can't have two trail builders on and then not talk about
the build
involved with. But if you don't want to talk about it, Baxter, that's fine.
Baxter can just sit there and smile.
Yeah, I just got a pretty bad taste in my mouth about it.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
it was.
I guess working as hard as Jai is right now to open that bottle of wine. That's all I want to know.
It's like the cork split.
Go ahead, Jai. Well, how'd you get involved with the in the build?
So how I got involved with the build was I did not work on the build for Hardline at all. So I just want to clear that up because quite a few people asked me about that. But that was where I was going at with the whole Glenorchy trail work and stuff. So I came over to Oz and came back to do some work with Dirt Art and manage that project. And then, so obviously during the build of that project, that's when I started hearing about Hardline kind of coming to Medina and all being a possibility. It wasn't 100% locked in or confirmed or anything yet at that point. But definitely a little bit of a dangling carrot. You're like, ooh, Hardline, that's pretty exciting. And especially from like winter, I just spent a winter in Tassie just to get a bit of a break from Queenstown. And then came over to Medina to help freshen up for like the start of the season. And where Hardline was going, it was like going straight through the green trail out there. So it meant that like a few trails had to get rerouted around the bike park. And I got put on the build for the green trail that's next to Hardline, which we named. It didn't get named officially this, but we were all calling it Red Bull Green Line. And that was just a flow trail with some berms and stuff like that. So I was working on that while Darcy was bulking out the big jumps down the bottom. So sort of like, bounced a few ideas around with Darcy, but at the end of the day, the build was being managed by Darcy Coots. So, if you had any questions or anything like that, like happy to sort of give my advice on like what my thoughts were with big jumps, having ridden and built a few myself in the past. But at the same time, it was a different style of jump. They were a lot more racy, high speed sort of stuff rather than your slope style big trick jumps or, even like big free ride jumps or anything like that. So I just sort of like hung out in the background and helped out where I could and stayed out where I could at the same time. But I think that what the boys built out there was absolutely phenomenal. Like one of the funnest courses I've ever ridden, ever of anything. Like all the features linked up really well together. And I think for me, my favorite part had to be like Tom's section. I don't know whether you probably would have seen it, like the big drop into the right-hand berm and then jump over that log there.
Sick. Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. Just one of the craziest feelings ever to ride. But like all of the stuff up the top there as well, the hand build stuff that the boys got into worked really well. Anyone that said that the track wasn't hard obviously didn't ride down it. You could obviously always make it more janky and unsafe and all that kind of stuff, but there were definitely some gnarly sections in it. Like as you can see, like Jackson can't race, for most of the World Cup season because he had a hugie in the rock garden. which for me, like that was the hardest part of the course. I was like, you're coming into that rock garden pretty high speed. If you want to make up the time, it's just get off the brakes and pin it through that thing. But for me, I wasn't racing, so I didn't even have to think about that. It was just like enjoy the rest of the course, like just get through the rock garden, and then ride the rest of the stuff outside of that. But yeah, I think all in all, for like something that was done for the very first time, like a brand new first build, realistically, other than Simon Palmer that was on, a lot of the carpentry stuff, who worked on the Hardline course in Wales, no one had ever built anything like this before. So everyone was just being thrown in the deep end, and had so much pressure, external pressure, or even just like pressure that you've built up in your own head of like Hardline is a pretty big deal. And like, it's a pretty big, like, how do I put that into words? There's so many eyes on it. Like it's something different. It's not a downhill race. Well, it's a downhill race, but it's not like your regular World Cup downhill track. It's not a free ride event. It's its own standalone thing. And if there's only one course, you've only got one thing to compare it to. If there was already 3 other rounds or something like that, it would be a lot easier to come in and just build a course and just go, oh, it's got its own variety compared to the rest of them. But they just had to compete with the one that was already established over 10 years or however many years it's been now, where they've been incrementally improving the course, year after year after year after year. These guys have to go straight to their top standard from the first build. So I think there was definitely a lot of stress and tension throughout the whole build process. I obviously, as I was saying, like I wasn't there for the whole thing. I left before Baxter even came into town. But you could definitely feel the tension and stress with the guys that were on the build. But yeah, as I said, I think like all in all, when you step back and you look at what the event was at the end of the day, I think they killed it. Like I think they did a really good job all in all. And like personally, I'm really proud of all the boys that put in all the effort into that, and everyone behind the scenes that made it happen as well. It's crazy, like absolutely wild. And I think even the fact that they had it as like a festival rather than the other events, the other one where you just go and the spectators go and watch and that's about it. I think it was a bit tricky having the 2 downhill races on. But I think that these guys probably learnt quite a lot from it. But I think just being able to have everyone involved is just a different way of doing it rather than just going to go and watch, a bunch of the top riders roll down the hill. You get to get involved, which I think was really cool. And Tom's jumps as well that he built like that.
They look sick.
Like
that
was Baxter.
That was definitely the most worthwhile extra thing that they had. I don't know about the rest of the festival. I don't know if that'll be combined again next year, but Tom's jumps were like, they're the best jumps that we rode all week. To be honest, was jumps built by Tom. Like the drop into the log jump that Tom built on the Hardline course was like, I don't know, one of my favorite sections. And then the jumps that like the rebuild of Medina Hits that Tom did that we had a jam on like midweek, that they're like some of the funnest jumps I've ridden probably in Australia. Yeah,
definitely. They were like for anyone that's, if you've been to Queenstown, this is the best way to describe it. It's a step between Mini Dream and Dream Track. We've got like a place, that's Mini Dream. It's a little bit sort of smaller, but they're still like big, trickable features and bigger than most jumps that we have in Australia as it is. And then the ones that Tom built are the step between Dream Track and Mini Dream, but super predictable. And I think what I really liked about what Tom did with those is it had a real trailsy kind of feel to it. There was no dead spots. You had like rollers and, little step down, like everything kind of like linked in and flowed, and they weren't just a straight line of jumps. It was, step down, left hip, roller, right hip, roller, step down, or was it step down, roller? I can't remember. And then into the final trick jump.
Step down, roller.
Yeah.
Heaps of waterfall rollers.
Yeah,
The best
big
kind.
fan of the waterfall rollers. Yeah, they're cool. Just like little pre-hop in and you're just on.
Yeah.
So I think that was really cool. And like, I would love to take a minute to talk about how much of an insane trail builder Tom Mallett is as well. And, you know, his project management skills on top of that as well, you know, with the Bear Creek bike park and then, you know, building those trails for ACT Jam as well. The dirt jump line out there. It did that on a super tight budget and tight time frame. And that looked unreal.
I knew if I wanted someone to come build some jumps in my yard, it's going to be Tom Mallett. Every day. Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
And he's not self-confident enough in his own riding abilities. Like, I think because he spent so much time working over the last couple of years, like just really grinding and wanting to improve so much as a trail builder and, you know, as a manager, as a person and all that sort of stuff.
I don't think he rides as much as he wants.
Yeah, but he's still got such crazy bike skill. Anyone that follows him and you see what he puts on his stories where he's just jibbing around and all that sort of stuff, like he's unreal.
And he can jump too. Like when he was building those jumps at Medina, he didn't want to test any of them. But like I'm like, if I've built it, I'll test it. And Tom's probably one of the few people where, like, if he builds it, I will happily test it as if I built it myself, like with the same level of confidence, because I just trust that dude with my life when it comes to building shit. And I went and tested the first like left hip with him, and we were just doing run-ins, and I was like, dude, it's gonna work 100%, like it's all good. But he was like, no, you take the honors, you jump it first. I was like, not a chance, man. You're jumping it first. Like, it's going to work fine. I'm telling you that, like, if roles are reversed and I'd built it, I'd have jumped it by now. I just did run in after run in until Tom fucking actually jumped it first. And I was like, sweet. And then I jumped it. I was like, perfect. It worked exactly like as we thought.
Yeah.
But he, like you just said, like he needs to trust himself in his own riding ability, because, like, obviously his building is insane. And even though he doesn't ride much, he still has all the control and like all the bike skills to jump anything that he's built. So if he wanted to, he could have easily jumped or ridden like the drop into the log jump that he built on Hardline, I reckon. For sure.
Easily.
Yeah, without a problem. He could have ridden the whole course without issue. Like he's a really talented rider. And a lot of people don't know, like, you know, when he was a fair bit younger, he was like quite a tapped racer as well. I can't remember the results off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he was like a pretty top national level downhill racer. Like, I want to say he was definitely inside the top 10, you know, through juniors and all that kind of stuff. And that's a lot of stuff that people probably don't know about Tom. But he's... Have
you had Tom on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
But all this talk makes me want to get him on again.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, we should invite him into the threesome, make it a foursome.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Definitely. He'll be like the dark horse in the corner, though. He won't talk.
We can get Tom talking.
Nah, he talks. Get some wine into him.
Yeah.
Or a beer.
Yeah. Or water.
But he's definitely built like one of the most, like one of the biggest jumps that I want to shoot. Like one of the most, I'll say this, like place I want to go the most to shoot is now the jump line in Medina.
Yeah.
Yeah, sick.
Like it just looks so scenic and so nice. And the jumps are actually big.
Yeah.
It's definitely one.
They don't look that nice anymore, unfortunately.
Oh. Well, it's all right. It's winter season. They'll get a little buff up for next year. Sorry, go on.
What was let's go back to Hardline a little bit though.
Yeah.
Like how do you like I've been fucking around in the digger a little bit for the last 6 months.
Sick.
How do you kind of go about building that lip for like I know you guys didn't build it, but how would you guys go about building the lip for the 70, 90 footer or whatever it ended up being, the 69 footer? How do you do you have to pack the bottom and build up from there, or do you just lump it up and pack it all at once?
Start from the it depends who you are and where you want to put the takeoff.
Yeah.
That's such a hard question to answer because there's like so many different ways that you could build it. But you're absolutely right in saying like the same with most things, like you've got to start from the bottom and build your way up. Otherwise the thing's just going to fall off the hill.
Yeah.
So it was I helped with moving the landing and the takeoff closer in because it was established that the initial distance was too big. And the way that we did that was like, even though the jumps were built initially with like a big machine, I actually was in a smaller machine and like benched my way around the back of the landing right down the bottom and like essentially just like rebuilt a bench on the back of it to edge it closer to the creek and worked my way up in just like machine width layers.
So to explain to anyone else like what a bench is in the digger, how would you explain that, Baxter?
A bench is essentially like I suppose think of it like a road, like if you've got a hill that's a 45-degree slope and you're trying to get across it, your bench is the flat portion that you dig into the hill to drive your machine across, I suppose, which ultimately ends up being the trail.
Yeah. But then like, I guess when you're talking like you did it with the lip, like what are you saying? Like what did you bench in the back of it? Like what was your process?
You essentially build your own platform, hey? Like
we had to move the whole landing back so that the gap of the jump was shorter, which meant that like the back of the landing was already too steep to simply just push dirt over it and fill it back up, I guess. And then we also had the creek to work with as well. So to get the back of the landing as far back as possible and as steep as possible, I suppose, we had to just build up like layer after layer, almost like a wall, I guess, and slowly pack it in and build it up and pack it in and build it up until it had raised up to the level that we needed. I didn't do a super good job of explaining that. I don't really know how to explain it.
No, I think that makes sense. Like essentially, yeah, what Darren was asking, I guess, how do you go about building something like that? And like the big thing is about making sure that it doesn't slip and fall apart. And that's what you're saying with, you compact in layers. Probably about, or for me anyway, about a meter, depending on the machine that I've got. If you've got a smaller machine, you can't really get away with that much because you won't be able to get the right compaction. But generally, you just work in layers and you start stacking up a little bit taller, a little bit taller, a little bit taller. And for me, I'll generally get it all the way up to a point that you've got like a bit of a wedge, and then we'll cut my lip out of the wedge and then place a bit of soft stuff back over the top to be able to then like reshape that. Which is pretty much what I did with cans. Was like, I added about 150 mil of soft soil onto the top, just purely because it was easier to rake around with the hand tools. And then you can compact that, 100 mil layer in with a car. But if you've already got a hard layer, it means that every time you like chisel in and you're trying to shape the lip with a shovel, you might hit a rock that's compacted in there, and then you pull the rock out, you've got this big hole. But if you've just got 150 mil of soft soil or 100 mil, whatever, you can rake it around quite comfortably, and then pull all the rocks out that are close to the surface, then compact that layer in. So that's generally how I do mine anyway. But like Baxter said, it depends on who you are. Everyone does things very differently. I know Tom Mallett likes to just scrape the whole lip out of a hard surface, and then I think you probably worked more with him, Baxter, but I think like he would have the whole lip as a hard surface and then put dirt in to fill the low points.
You go on again. The wedge thing makes total sense to me now. Like I didn't even think about that. So you're making the triangle and then cutting it third lip.
It's the skin of cat.
We just missed out on everything you said, Baxter. You were just glitching. Yeah, it sounds like Baxter's having technical issues at this point.
Queenslander. How was dropping into those jumps that you haven't built? Like, how was it dropping into Hardline for the first time?
For me, it was pretty. To be honest, it was pretty chill.
Is he back?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully,
yes. This is horrible on my end.
Yeah, you are cutting in and out quite a lot.
Yeah, and like I can't hear. Like every second sentence is like.
That's how you sound too.
Yeah, sweet.
That's tough.
Fine.
Yeah, you've been pretty sweet until that last couple of paragraphs.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're doing okay. Just while you were gone for a second there, we were just talking about like what it was like dropping into some of those features for the first time. For me, I got there and a bunch of the guys had already done the testing. One of the boys had already had a pretty big crash on the bottom jump, which was Dave McMillan. I think it's pretty publicly known now. I think he put a post up about it and stuff anyway. But he had a huge crash.
That was like a month before anyone even got there. That was during our test week.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Like, so everything had been tested before I even got there. So for me, I knew that everything was sweet and that it worked. But I think Baxter's probably the same. Like, probably both quite calculated riders, where we know you can kind of visualize what a jump's going to do just by looking at it and how that's all going to pan out. Well, now Darren's taken off. Now Darren's back. So I think like coming into those. Yeah, sorry, go Baxter.
The scariest things for me were the drops because I don't really ride. Like I never ride drops. We don't really have many drops to ride. It's not something that I really enjoy the feeling of that much. So like I don't go out of my way to ride big drops. So I think like eyeing up a jump, like a normal double, I'm pretty good with being like, oh yeah, cool, it's probably going to feel like this. You're going to need to go this fast. But like eyeing up drops, and especially of that scale, I was like, I got no fucking idea what this is going to be like when I go off it.
It's interesting that you say that because I think my thing's slightly different because of like, I guess I've done quite a lot of riding on the Rotorua slopestyle course, and that was the first time I'd ever ridden like a flat drop, like quite a large flat drop.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only time. But man, I've done so many laps of that course now that I feel like I've got a little bit more of like a visualization for drops as well as, just as well as I do with the other jumps as well, because they're quite tricky to look at. You might be sitting on the top. Well, the biggest thing for me about a drop is the landings have to be so much steeper than you think that they need to, because you're not getting the same forward momentum of like up and then down. You're literally just falling immediately. So it means that landing's got to be so steep to be able to catch you on the backside. And we probably noticed that a little bit at Hardline, that a couple of landings were like pretty mellow for what they were. Like they definitely could have been steeper, but at the same time,
they're pretty much all very flat.
Yeah. But at the same time, I think it also
Bernie, that clip of Bernard's ankles was unfucking real to see. Like I know he's just a bit harsh, but that was I
heavy. almost tested that drop like the week before, and then
still here.
Oh, Darren's gone.
No, I'm still here. I just turned my video off.
Okay. I almost tested that drop like the week before they all rocked up, because Darcy broke his collarbone, and then they asked me to step into Darcy's position, and try and get all the jumps like finished off so that when everyone rocked up, they had something to test, I suppose. And we were looking at the road gap. The landing was like a little bit soft. We'd kind of like knuckled it over to make it a bit safer to test. And I was running into it thinking, yeah, you're just going to like kind of cruise off this. And then because the landing was soft, Reece saved my life that day. But Reece was like, oh man, maybe we'll just come back to it, like try again another day kind of thing. And we tested the next jump instead. But like in hindsight, looking at how fast Bernard went off that thing and only just made it, I would have landed on the fucking road. I would have actually killed myself.
Which one? Which drop was that? You're talking about the timber one.
The container road gap.
Yeah.
Like I would have actually died.
So was that longer beforehand, or you were just like the speed?
No, I just had no idea how fast to go.
Oh,
I just thought you'd just like Yeah, I was just like, you're just gonna like cruise off it.
Yeah. Would you have pulled off it though? Like, would you have done a little like natural pop?
Yeah, I would have got, like, if I had have actually jumped it, I would have like maybe done a pedal, got to the end and been like, when you're at the takeoff and then you're like, oh fuck. Yeah. And I would have yanked probably, but like I still would have killed myself, I reckon.
Yeah. I actually, that
and it also used it did used to be longer too. Like, how it was like built up onto the old shuttle road.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was like a raised case pad.
Yeah.
All of that raised case pad didn't used to be there. It used to just be like
to the road
landing. So it was probably like 1.5 meters longer and further down.
Yeah. I don't think that would have been an issue though, gauging off like where we're all landing, but it's definitely scarier.
Nah, but for the testing, it would have come up even shorter.
Because he pedaled like 3 times into that, and he's a power horse. Like,
yeah, exactly. And then he pulled, and he landed. He like greased it. I was literally planning on doing like a pedal and just cruising off it.
Well, it was funny because I didn't pedal. I think I did.
I did it in the end, but
yeah,
I didn't pedal in the end, and I was like. But remember, I don't know if you remember from the video when Bernard jumped it, there was like an S-bend onto the bridge.
Yeah, right.
Whereas now you do that step down and then you just go straight on.
Yeah.
So like that, like I built that S-bend because again, I was like, you're not going to need to go that fast. Like this will be a speed check. But then we had to move the speed check
before like step down.
One feature further uphill and then build a step down and straighten it all up so that you had more speed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that looks so flat. But it's hard to tell from the video, right? Like
landing.
We couldn't tell much.
No, it's pretty flat.
Yeah. Well, it's flat for like what the size of the feature is and what it's like to ride. But if you were to just like literally stand there without too much knowledge about it, you just look at it and you go, fuck, that's a pretty steep landing. I'd hate to come up short on that. Like it still has that look about it, but when you ride it, it definitely still feels flat. You're like, oh, geez, there's a bit of an impact as you kind of come into that.
I think it's also just quite round at the top. So like the top of the landing where you actually land is not the steepest bit. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you're landing on like a flat bit and then after you've compressed is like where the landing's kind of steeper. Or alternative, if you go, 5 or 10 foot further past the sweet spot, then you land in the steeper bit, but it's still harsh because you've jumped further than you needed to. Yeah.
But I think I definitely remember while we're still talking about hitting those features for the first time. Going further down the course, and when we got to Tom's drop, I think Win Masters was like sort of sitting down there at the time. Because when we did the first practice laps, we all went in like one big group to like tick off a feature and then go down the next one. That was good and bad.
It might have looked sick. It was horrible as a rider.
Yeah,
Well,
I still enjoyed it.
No, it was good. Yeah, sorry.
But we should have been split.
It was
I think
good,
we should have
but
just
it was
been
a lot of faffing.
I think we should have just been split into two groups, just split straight down the middle.
Yeah.
And then like separated by like half an hour or something like that, or an hour.
Yeah.
Because what it ended up being, and what I did like about that was no one was allowed to pressure anyone. So if people wanted to stand on the lip and have a like good look at the jump for a while before they committed to doing it, we all had like a mutual understanding just to let them take as much time as they need. Don't drop, don't ask them to move out of the way. Just let them have the course to themselves for a few minutes to figure it out. And I think that was like a really good respect thing for everyone to just be able to take their time and wrap their head around it and not feel pressured to just push in and just hit this jump that they weren't 100% sure about. But at the same time, that then meant that we had like big weights between like hitting it, because someone would take a run in, stop on the lip, and then sort of like and ah about it for a while and then come up, and then the next person might do the same thing. So if you're like ready to go, but you're like 3 people back from being able to drop in, you're probably not going to be able to hit the feature for about 20 to 30 minutes. So that was probably like
I don't reckon it was that long.
I think that was an exaggeration.
That's what it feels like when you're on the
yeah,
like,
that's what it feels like.
Felt like down. That. But I think for the dudes that were, you know, like I'm ready to go, I'm going to jump this, you know, right now. Like I think especially before anything had been hit in that session, like I was happy to be like, if I was umming and ahhing, I was happy to stand back and just watch the dudes who were like frothing to jump it. Because the more people that jumped it, like the more you get an idea of like, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I think for me, because I wasn't even an invited rider, and we can go into that in a minute as well. Being there was just trying to make sure that I didn't piss anyone off. I didn't get in anyone's way. I just tried to make sure that I sort of like almost hung at the back a little bit and let everyone that was an invited rider, you know, take their time on course, and like I'll go when they're all ready to go. But at the same time, if I'm ever at like a jam, or I think I've even talked about it on the podcast before, like, you know, with the slopestyle courses, I used to like to let Tom Hay, my old employer, go first because it's his course and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I'm always ready to I just want to drop in and just go and just get it done, and then move on. And like, then you can just start just moving on from there. But in this scenario, I knew that I had to have respect for the riders and the organizers and just kind of keep my distance a little bit. But at the same time, so that's where like I had internal frustration being like, come on, like just hit the feature. Cause I'm like, I'm ready to go. I don't really want to be waiting, but I'm not the person that's just going to be like, can you guys get out of the way? I'm not a racer, but I want to hit it now. Like I wasn't going to be that dude.
Yeah.
What was it like? You got all these dudes in their racing pajamas and you're in your dickies and fucking flanny just ripping. Like,
I think I'm pretty much wearing the same clothes right now that I'm riding.
I'm pretty sure you just own one pair of pants now, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
That was,
pants are expensive, man.
I thought it was pretty sick to see like Dennis and Jim and stuff, like ex World Cup racers just like racing in like literally just jeans and a t-shirt. It was fucking sick, I reckon.
Who's the guy that raced on like Dan Atherton because he rocked up with his Canyon that was
like that was Dennis.
Yeah, that was Dennis.
2 seasons old or some shit and barely rideable.
Yeah, Dennis had an absolute heater too.
What'd you say, Baxter?
Dennis used to be on FMD Racing.
That's right.
Like that Canyon is still from when he was on the team.
Unreal.
It's funny. I actually didn't even know that Dennis was a racer. Interesting.
Yeah.
The more you know.
He like raced World Cups like the same. Oh, maybe just after me kind of thing. He was, I think he's like a year or 2 younger than me, or similar age or something. Yeah.
That checks out because I just see him like riding his dirt jumper for the most part, like doesn't really touch like the big bike even that much. And like if he does, like, he definitely rips. He's got like a crazy style on the bike. But he came up to like, I think it was after Hardline, and he rode Dream Track on the hardtail. and was like doing flips and stuff. And he said like after that, he just didn't even want to ride his downhill bike on Dream anymore. Like,
yeah, well, he came to Notion, remember?
Yeah. I remember that. I was there.
Yeah.
We're gonna get there, Baxter. Don't worry. We'll talk about Notion soon. I know you're eager.
Righto.
How did you end up riding, Jai? Like, you went on the invite list, and then next minute I see you up on the hill. I'm like, fuck, this guy's doing something.
So this like goes back all to like when I was doing, the work and stuff at Medina, and Simon was having conversations with us all about, Hardline and the athletes, how many people were going to be like, the invited riders plus a few locals. But when they say locals, they mean, local to Australia, New Zealand kind of area. It doesn't mean just because you're in Medina, you get to compete. And I was definitely one of the first people to put my hand up, and I was like I'm keen as to ride. I've ridden big jumps before, like 80 foot, whatever, big free ride, big air sort of stuff. Like I know I've got the capabilities to do it. And like it was, I didn't feel like I was really getting any answers. Even like back then, it was like, oh, we'll sort of see how it goes. Like Darcy was kind of confirmed as he was like the lead builder on the course, but then there was no real answers about like what's going on with any other spots. And then when I left, I told Frenchie like I was keen if there was going to be reserves or, a track sweeper or something, like I really wanted to do it. And didn't really hear much. And then I sort of sent like another message, and I was like, well, because I was umming and ahhing about whether I was going to come over. I didn't really want to come over to Hardline just to watch. And I was like just weighing everything up. And then Baxter was talking to me about Notion happening. And I knew Tom Mallet was building the jumps at Medina. So I just decided to make a trip out of it. I was like, no matter what, like I'll just go over, and then I've got 2 jump jams that I get to do over like a 10-day period kind of thing. So I booked the tickets, and I was like, I'm going, and I messaged Frenchie again, and I was like, look, like I've booked my flights. I'm coming. I'm really keen to come over if there's like a possibility for reserves or anything. And he did get back to me after he had a meeting with Red Bull, and Red Bull got back to him and said that they weren't going to be making any more changes to the riders list. Like done, it's all sealed off. And then like a week before I left, I started to see like new riders get added to the lineup, which was like Dennis. But Dennis had also been riding at Wales like in a couple of years before that.
Yeah, he's raced Wales a bunch of times.
No, he never raced. He's never done the start.
Oh, he's just ridden.
He's crashed or like something's happened where he hasn't been able to compete. So Tasmania was the first time he was ever actually able to compete. So I saw that he got added. I saw that Matt Jones got added. And then at that point I was like, man, well, people are getting added to this list. I'm like, I just decided at that point that I was going to shamelessly do everything I could to get in there. And like I'm just gonna keep going until someone tells me to fuck off. Pretty much was like that was my mentality. I was like, I want to be here so fucking bad. Like I want to ride this stuff. And I said to Baxter when I think it was like when we were coming home from like back to Medina from Hobart Airport, and I was like, man, I'm gonna try everything I can to get into this event. Like, I really need you to introduce me to the people at Red Bull or whoever else I need to talk to, just to try and essentially plead my case and just feel like, look, in the end, Baxter introduced me to, why have I forgotten his name now?
Matt.
Not Matt. Who was the guy at Red Bull AU?
Tim.
So that was where we started. So Red Bull Australia.
Well, luckily through Darcy breaking his collarbone and stepping out for a week, and then me stepping in, and then Darcy coming back, and then me, I suppose, just being involved in like the testing week and the build from there on, I was able to to build enough of a trust relationship with Tim and Matt to be like, look, my mate Jai's good for it. He's more than capable. He's not going to kill himself. Like slam ride practice at least.
Yeah, and like we started with Tim, and then Tim's like, well, I'm not really the guy. Like, you're gonna have to speak to Matt, and then spoke to Matt. And then Matt was like, yeah, same. Like, he was kind of like a bit hesitant, but I basically just said, like, I know a bunch of riders have all pulled out. Like, David obviously like hurt himself. There were other people that were supposed to be coming from overseas, and that was where I said, like, yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to go. I've like ridden all these big features. You know, not these ones, but I've ridden big features before. You know, also pretty capable at downhill stuff as well. And then, yeah, it was when I went to like the change room to like go and get changed or something. And Matt came up to Baxter and like kind of gave Baxter, or this is what Baxter told me anyway, like gave him a bit of a look. Matt, and he's like, this guy, like, is he any good or like what's going on? And then luckily, yeah, Baxter vouched for me, and Eddie Masters was there as well, but he had a head injury. He was also supposed to be racing.
Yeah.
And I know Eddie, you know, I wouldn't say quite well, but I know Eddie pretty well from being over here in Queenstown and bumping into him through the Vanzacks and lots of stuff as well. And he was asking like if I was riding, and I was like, man, I want to so bad. And then he went and vouched for me to Matt as well, because I said to Matt, I was like, look, I know a lot of these riders that are here, and like I'm sure that they're all going to vouch for me. And then Eddie went and said something to him for me. And that was when they got back to me, and they were like, yeah, look, like we'll put you on for practice. You know, no promises that you're going to get to race or anything like that, but like we'll see how you go out there. And then it was at that point, my mate, which you would have seen, David Perez-Nani, Argentinian guy, also a Queenstown local. He was over there as well. Pretty much like had the same idea. He really wanted to do hardline too. His riding has got phenomenal over the last 2 years.
So sick.
And, you know, he asked me, he's like, oh, you're going to come for a lap? And I was like, oh, bit of a change of plans. Like, I'm going to do hardline. And he's like, who'd you talk to? Show me. And I was like, oh, like, you know,
pulls out a lot of cash from his pocket. He's like, where do I go?
And like, I just told him, I was like, yeah, like Eddie spoke to the guys for me and Baxter, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, where's Eddie? And like, because he knows Eddie Masters quite well as well. And then Eddie went and spoke to them about David. And then we were on, like both of us. So it was pretty sick to like, you know, be out there with one of my other mates from Queenstown that I ride Dream Track with every single week. And the two of us, like, I'm not going to say no business being there, because I feel like we definitely showed that we,
I can oath you do.
We did like, belong to be there.
Blunt. Like you guys fucking ripped.
It was cool. And it's just like, yeah, we were nobodies essentially, but we were like, we know we've got the capabilities to ride this. So getting that opportunity was just something else. And I'm forever grateful to everyone at Red Bull for allowing me that opportunity. But one thing that I struggled with while I was there was because they had that other race on at Medina, we're all like jumping onto the hardline shuttle bus, because there were separate shuttle buses, one for the hardline and then one for, you know, everyone else that's like racing the other downhill race. And sort of looking over, the one moment that I really like struggle with it was when I was boarding onto the hardline shuttle bus, and you look over and you see these top level racers, you know, Australia's like best racers and stuff are there, and they're looking at you. And I couldn't help but feel pretty guilty and feel like I shouldn't be here. You know, when you've got guys like that, that would love to be racing, like Will Hines, for example, like would be phenomenal rider to watch at Hardline.
I'm pretty upset that we couldn't get Will in, because I tried as well, and I think he was sold a bit of a lie for like the months leading into that. His name was kind of like in the ring, and then I spoke to Matt. Like after I got you in, I spoke to Matt. I was like, just out of curiosity too, I was like, have you heard of a local kid called Will Hines? He was like, no, never heard the name before. I was like, fuck. Like, and that, but hopefully for next year, we'll get him in.
But the thing is, like, as much as you say that, you've proved yourself to be good at the big stuff. Like, sure, the races are sick, but like, no one else is flat spinning.
Yeah, but Will
is sick. Like, I'm not saying that Will doesn't deserve it, but I'm just saying that there's no reason that Jai shouldn't be there either. If you know what I mean, like, you both deserve spots
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because I think that Will would have put down an extremely good result there. Yeah. Whereas if I was given the opportunity to race, I don't think I would have done too bad. Like, I think that I've still got a little bit of pace in me. Maybe not the fact that like I haven't dedicated so much time to my racing and stuff, but kind of just piggybacking off the natural ability a little bit. And like, I probably would have got down with a semi-decent time.
Yeah,
but nothing like what Will would have done.
Matt Jones was riding.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Like, obviously, he's there to get as many views. Like Sorry. Matt.
Oh yeah. But I also think that the nature of the track it didn't really favor it favored races 100% because none of all of the jumps were all mellow, flat, fast, long and low. So they weren't like the Wales course where you've got like actual free ride jumps and then you've got downhill tech. It wasn't the course was, don't get me wrong, it's just unreal, like one of the sickest tracks I've ever ridden. But I don't think the jumps were like free ridey enough to actually split the riders.
So I've got a point on this as well. After listening to a podcast with Jimmy Ramsey, have you heard of Jimmy Ramsey at all, Darren? Talking Turkey with Jimmy, I think is the name of his podcast. He's out of Queenstown.
I've heard the name. Yeah.
I've
heard the podcast name.
He had Louise Ferguson on, who was the one that had like 3 crashes or whatever, and still hit every feature.
MVP by far.
MVP.
And he had her on, and Jimmy had a pretty like strong stance on the fact that, you know, why are these free riders there? Like at the end of the day, it's a race. Like, yeah, it's sick seeing all of these guys in practice, and like he thought that the best thing about Hardline was all the content that was coming out before the actual race went down and getting to see all of these people riding. So his opinion was, sick. Get these free riders in for practice and all that sort of stuff. Like, get some cool content out of them. You're going to see them tricking these big features and all that sort of stuff. But when the racing comes along, just let the racers do their thing. And I think in the current format that it's at, I would agree with the same thing, because it's pretty crazy to have these guys and girls at the top, like so fast. And then you've got everyone else that's kind of like dribbling away at the back, when you've got so many other racers that would be really capable of riding this sort of stuff. And I think that the reason Hardline was built, I don't know, I didn't talk to Dan enough about like why they did it in the first place, was that the World Cup tracks were just getting too easy and fast and boring, and they wanted hard shit to ride. So it's not necessarily about it being a free ride event. It's just a different style of downhill track. Having the free riders and stuff there, I think is cool. But unless they bring in features in like a speed and style kind of manner, where you've got these huge, like 60-foot steep jumps where you get time deducted for doing tricks, there's no real point the free riders competing. And I say that as a free rider myself, but like I was just happy to be there to be riding the features and cool with that. But it is kind of strange that these guys are brought in literally as like a bit of a token so that we can get some more views. Like the big thing is like, how many more people would have watched Hardline because Matt Jones was racing?
Oh, a million.
Like that brought in numbers. Like that brought in so much money having him race. Maybe if he wasn't racing, maybe the event wouldn't do as well. Like, you know, it still does great or whatever, but he actually probably could have brought in a hell of a lot of money for that event, just in like the stats that they were able to pull by having someone like that there. It's like the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. Like, it's so stupid, but it's going to make a lot of people money.
Well, I watched all his YouTube videos, but I didn't watch his race run. Like, I had no interest in his, like, he's a fucking amazing rider, but like I had no interest in watching him race. Actually,
while we're on this, I'll talk on this real quick, because it was crazy to see how nervous he was with the features. I
was really impressed, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I towed him into probably like half of the course. Sorry, you go. You're lagging.
I was impressed by two things. Like, one, unlike some of your other heroes that are massive YouTubers and you think are rad dudes, he was actually like a super nice dude, I thought. And I didn't expect him to ride like some of that stuff as good as what he did, given his background in riding. Like, it's not like he's come from downhill at some point. Like, he's kind of always just been a slope style guy. So I don't know. I was super impressed by him.
Yeah. I think the thing is, he actually does more downhill or like trail riding and all that kind of stuff than what we really think. But at the same time, he's not got that same background that a lot of the other people do. But he's very skilled on a bike, and like watching him hit those features,
I knew that he'd be fine. Yeah, I knew he'd be fine for all the jumps and stuff. But like some of the more like kind of technical, like rocky, gnarly shit, I was like, this dude can ride. Yeah. Well, not that you ever question that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
While we're talking about people that shouldn't ride and stuff, but
who are you gonna say shouldn't ride?
No, not everyone should be able to ride. It's different who should race. But it was like about time to see some ladies on the hill fucking ripping.
Oh yeah.
Gracie Hemstreet, Tani and Louise were unbelievable. Like, I couldn't believe it. Yeah.
I think the only person they were missing, in my opinion, was Vinnie Armstrong.
Yeah.
That would have been sick. Like, as far as like big.
Do you think she would have come though?
Yeah, I think she would have. I think she would have been super nervous because she's a really nervous rider. She's got the capabilities and all that sort of stuff, but she's a little bit hesitant sometimes. So
absolutely.
I think she probably would have just been like, oh, I don't know, but like she would have just like creamed every jump without an issue. Like, it
and
would
the
have
atmosphere of like everyone towing each other in and stuff would have helped as well, right? Like.
Yeah, but she's not. She doesn't have any.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not. But the thing is, there was no crowd to begin with. Like, when we were first ticking off features and all that kind of stuff. As long as she's got like friends that she can hang out with and bounce off, like, she probably would have been sweet. And then like you get to like the racing time and it would have been all good. But at the same time, she doesn't want to race either.
Yeah.
So
and we were missing Jess too.
Yes.
Yeah. She was injured, right? Ankle? Ankle, wrist?
No, she just didn't want to go. Like, she wanted to go, but she just didn't want to go.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I think. I think she, like, after last year, like, she didn't even crash and she hurt her ankle, and that like fucked her whole World Cup season. So I think she was like pretty keen to actually have a good World Cup season.
That went well. Isn't she injured now? No, I'm thinking of Jenna Hastings.
No, I don't think so.
I'm thinking of Pivot. Jenna.
Yeah.
Like I feel so sorry for Jackson but like this shit's going to happen anyway. So.
It was so unlucky. It was so devastating, like watching on the big screen down the bottom. Like, you just see it happening. You're like, oh my God. Like, it was so gnarly. Like, actually all of it. Like, the first couple of races that we watched come down, we watched them on the TV in the athlete tent. And then watching Louise go down.
Which time?
Well, like the first time. And we're like, oh no. But then like seeing her get up and then just like hitting feature after feature. And then when I can't remember whether it was, I think it was just 2 crashes. I can't remember whether there was a third one or not. But I think it was just two. But like the second one that she had was so gnarly, like getting hung up in that berm. And then you see her get up, and we were kind of all just expecting her to just like cruise down to the bottom and not hit anything. And like us in the athlete tent losing our mind when we saw that she hit like the container drop, and we're like, she's going for it. Like, and
I heard a rumor like it was a kid on the sideline that's just yelling, keep going. And that's
sick.
what got her kept going. Like,
oh, that's cool.
I think she mentioned that somewhere.
Sick. Yeah.
Yeah, that's real cool. Louise is such a fantastic, bubbly person. I've never met someone. Actually, no, there's only one other person that I've met that's like so happy all the time, and that's Annie Ford. But like, she's just so genuinely happy and smiley and just like having a good time and just happy to be there. She's like, this is cool. Like, I'm happy to be here with my friends, just smiling, like having a good time. Like, it's so good. I love that infectious attitude when you get someone that's like, it's hard to be a downer around those kind of people. You're like, this is cool. I'm like, I'm being a piece of shit. Why am I being miserable?
I don't know about you, Joe, but I also think it was like, it was quite nice having like all the girls on track with us riding like during practice, especially that first day, in the sense of like, I think a lot of what kept the environment like quite calm and like respectful was having the girls around. Yeah. And that meant that like some of the dudes, like myself included, when we needed to take a bit of extra time, you didn't have like this fucking hot-headed, like male-dominated environment of like, let's just fucking go kind of thing. Yeah. And you could just be like, oh, yeah, it's all good. We're just chilling. Take my time. We'll jump it when I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there was definitely a feature or two that the girls were hitting before me as well. Like, especially like, well, the one that got me, which was so stupid and I got so in my head about, was the cannon. So the jump after the container drop. So like the whole time you're in the trees, and that is the first time that you jump out of the trees, and that valley in there like gets quite windy. So for me, I was terrified to jump out of the trees because I'm like, what if I hit this and it blows the bike from underneath me? And that took me so long to hit that thing. I think I was probably the last person to hit that feature. But
it was also quite windy when we were trying to test it too. Just FYI, I'd already jumped it. Like I guinea pigged that, and I still didn't want to jump it that day because it was so windy.
It was so. That was probably, if we're talking about all the features on the course, that was probably the one that messed with my head the most and that I struggled with. But if you look at any videos or listen to what anyone's talked about, no one talks about that feature at all. But like, in my opinion, that was the hardest to get over. Like it was easy to do, but like as far as like the mental barriers of everything went, like how big would that like road gap be? About 50, 60 feet maybe?
60 something to like a flat landing that points the wrong way, kind of roughly. I don't know. It's like, well, it doesn't point the wrong way. It's just not where you expect it to be, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, it was also
like it's a very blind, like kind of shark fin-ish takeoff, and you do sort of have to turn off it a bit.
Yeah. Well, actually, no. I've just realised that I lied earlier when I said I didn't work on the Hardline course because after day one of practice, I changed that jump.
Oh yeah, you did too.
Back tampering.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No. It was all discussed in like the athlete meeting after.
It was after the track walk, wasn't it?
No. Because we'd hit every feature. We'd all hit the road gap. And then we stopped after that because it was so windy, but we were all just hitting the hitting that container drop. And then we had an athlete meeting after practice before going up for dinner up at the summit. And we were having this meeting down there, and then there was talks about that bottom jump, and we were all worried that the jump was a bit too short. I I stood there with someone that had a radar. This is like later on down the track that was radar and Baxter when he came through. And you were doing 71 Ks an hour around the berm and then hitting this cannon out of the trees. So you were going so fast. And we just looked at it and the landing was quite short, straight into a left-hand berm. And maybe it would have been fine as it was. Like I know it had been hit, but no one had hit it with hitting the container drop. Baxter and a few other people had all hit it on the road.
When we tested it, we just started where the container was and like dropped in down the embankment across the road, like kind of jumped into the landing and then just pedaled at it. So I think like the conclusion that we all came to was that going off of like the speed you'd be going off the container drop at that jump would be like so much faster, and the jump worked pretty much perfect starting like just on the road
drop and just like pedaling into it.
Yeah. So
after that chat, there was originally like talk. They spoke to Baxter and Booker and asked about those boys like going up and changing it. And then I think it might have been Chaos that like spoke up and was like, well, you guys probably want some rest. So like, don't you? Like, you don't want to be like, you guys are racing. Like, you don't want to be out here like doing trail work.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So, and it was at that point I just stuck my hand up and I was like, I'll do it. Like, no one, like a lot of the people there, apart from like, the people that I already knew, like Baxter and Booker and stuff, didn't know that I was a trail builder or anything, but I was like, look, I'll just go up and do it right now.
Yeah,
basically,
I think that like having me and Booker there to be like, like out of anyone in this room that we would trust to go and do that, like you guys have trusted us to go and do it. We're not going to do it. Jai's going to do it. Like, he's good.
And that's my only work that I did, and I like literally just took a meter off the lip in the machine, and then Dylan Shea and I can't remember who else it was that did it, but there were like a couple of guys they just went up in the morning and hand slapped the rest of it. So I think I literally spent like 20 minutes on the Hardline course. So I think that means that I built the course. We can all agree on that
yours,
now.
Yeah, man.
All those bottom jumps are yours.
But even after that, man, even after I changed that jump, it still took me all of the next day to just commit to going off that lip. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like I'm pretty good at visualizing what's going to happen. And all I was visualizing the whole time was I'm going to go off this jump and the wind's going to pick up and it's going to blow the bike from underneath me. And I'm going to have a hugie in this corner because it's a step down, 71 Ks an hour, straight out of the trees. And you're like, I watched everyone hit it over and over and over again. I wasn't worried about coming up short. I could spot exactly where I was going to land. I knew all of the other stuff, but it was just the external factors of like, this wind's going to just rail me. But yeah, once I finally went off that lip, I definitely realized that it was pretty chill. And it was just like, you just got to do it.
Fine.
And then I think like the 70 foot at the bottom, I think that took me 3 run-ins at it. And then the time that I hit it, I actually had a mishap with the flag. So they've got like, those windsock things. They had one of them set up at the lip. And I'm coming into this jump and I just saw that the windsock was just like in a straight line, like dead straight line. So I thought that meant that I had headwind. I just got the two mixed up. It was actually tailwind. And I was coming in, I speed tucked into it and then pulled off the lip. And like, luckily, like a little bit cleaner than a couple of the other guys that like went big. But I think there's a video on my Instagram and like I probably went another 30 feet past that landing as well. So like then when that was happening, I remember overhearing conversations that apparently like Dave McMillan saw all these videos of everyone going deep on that jump. And then he started feeling really bad because obviously he crashed on it. And he's like, maybe we shouldn't have changed it. But that day that everyone was putting the videos up of everyone going deep, we just had a crazy tailwind. And that's how much it changes on a jump that big.
Connor is like Connor Fearon, he's pretty good. He's a new up and comer guy.
Yeah.
Like he's been around for a couple of
him.
years, and even I talked to him after the event and stuff. Even he was like, if you came around that corner and there was a headwind, you were fucked. Like you were working to get that jump.
That jump couldn't have been any bigger.
Yeah, and like if he's telling me you're working, then I'm good.
Yeah.
Like,
it all depends on even how you came out of that shark fin as well. Because like I had a couple where I kind of like I just went off the center of the shark fin, and then like same thing, overheard some people talking, and they were talking about like, oh, make sure you come high out of the shark fin, because then you can like really push into the landing. Because if you went off the middle and you tried to push the trajectory, like the angles that you kind of came at it, it would almost force you into a case. But if you came high off the shark fin, you could get more pump out of the landing. Not even something I'd even thought about until these guys had talked about it. I was like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Like it's just so many small little things. Like it was literally like a foot difference into where you take off made so much more speed.
What was it? What was it like watching Baxter try and front flip it, Jai?
Oh my God.
Nobody saw that except
we
for
saw
the
video.
That was, I was like, I had to go and change my underwear after that. I was like, Baxter's dead. Like, RIP.
Yeah, I thought I was dead for a split second, but you're traveling at such a speed that it was all over and done with. Like that's why I can't really remember like why I got pitched forward so hard, because everything happened so quickly. But Dan Atherton was there. He just said I got like a gust of headwind, and that just like picked my bike up. Apparently,
it's gnarly. Can I make a call real quick? Not a phone call, just like a call on myself. I've only told one other person this, and that was Tom Mellett.
Yeah,
and this is a call out to Red Bull as well. If I go back next year, Tim. If I go back next year, I'm going to flip the 70 foot at the bottom.
Fair enough.
You can't flip it with the way the lip is currently.
Yeah. You can.
If
it gets changes, it'll be even better.
I want you to hold his beer.
I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think it's 100% there. And I know that Reed Boggs and Johnny Solito were talking about it as well, and they were like, "Yeah, it's definitely possible." And they were thinking about it as well. But if I go back, I'm going to flip it.
Okay, I'll hold you to that.
Yeah, perfect.
Are you going to have as many wines as what you've had for this before you hit it, or?
No, I might go sober for a year again.
Yeah. Since one of us has raced it, Baxter.
Yeah.
What was your race on like? Like, were you zoned in, or did you hear everyone, or like?
Wait, can we edit that last part out or not?
No.
Before we talk about
fucking backing it.
Okay, sorry, go.
It's going to be a like intro clip, man. I'm going to tag Red Bull, that like Red Bull NZ, Red Bull Europe for everyone.
No, do it. I'll do it.
Now, just before we go I'll get to my race in a sec, but I think one of and Jai, you can probably contest this as well. One of the gnarliest things that I found from Hardline from practice, like obviously ticking everything off, that was like a pretty hectic day, but was seeding day or qualifying day, because there was both like the first time we ridden the track in the wet, but because it rained, but also the first time that we had spectators on course. So it was like our first practice run for seeding day was like trying to survive in the wet, and then also like spectators were allowed on course, but only up to the landing of the cliff drop that Tom built, like the cliff drop into the right-hand berm and then the log jump. So like it's dead silent. You're just like in your own head, like trying to survive like this gnarly track in the wet. And then you get like onto the bridge to go off that cliff drop, and you just see like literally just a sea of people. And you're just like, holy fuck. And I think that was like one of the most intimidating like things, because I wasn't expecting it.
I got so much FOMO of that, because it was the day before seeding day, like because we had athlete meetings every morning and every day after practice was done.
Yeah.
And it was after the day before seeding was the day that David Pereznani and I were both told that like we were done, like there's no more because like seeding day. So from then
you didn't get to ride that.
No, so like seeding day and race day, David and I were both out.
Yeah.
So I walked up the course when all of that sort of stuff was going on and seeing the huge crowd at Tom's drop. That was when I started getting
gnarly.
It was crazy. That's when I started getting FOMO. I was like, I want to be riding right now.
Yeah.
Like,
you should have.
Yeah.
But like remember how quiet like it was practice the day before? Like the whole top half of the track was exactly like that. And then like you can't see the crowd until you're on the bridge. And as you know, Jai, once you're like on the timber for that drop, you're 100% committed. So and the way that whole drop kind of lines up, because it's the timber, like you kind of got to turn like a little bit right off of it, or the track goes right as you land. So all you can see off the end of the wood as you're coming on is people. Like it literally felt like you were just going to jump into a crowd.
Yeah, it was
insane.
It was definitely like eye-opening for me because I've actually still never been to a World Cup. I think like what's the biggest downhill event that I've ever been to? Like maybe Crankworks.
Yeah, probably.
But even then,
have you been to Crankworks in Whistler?
Yeah, but like 12 years ago now.
Okay.
And I was on the rock because I was injured, so I couldn't race. So I think it was definitely like quite spectacular to see such a crowd. Like I've never seen that many people at a downhill race before, and then seeing it in your own home country.
No, not even close.
And like the fact that like people are hitting features this big, like that blows people's minds. So the crowd was unreal. Like there was no stopping alcohol getting up the hill. Like I don't know how you're gonna try and police that. But like, and I don't know if they weren't allowed to or not. But you had a crowd that was having a good time. Like, they were your typical Australian crowd. Like it was really special.
You were
it was
talking
pretty
about
loose,
that.
like.
Sorry, you were talking about that drop into the right hander, like Tom's drop. People were standing on the top of the corner, like from what I saw.
Like, supposed to be. That was fenced off.
That's why it felt like you were going to jump off the bridge and just land in people.
It looked so sketchy, but at the same time, looked so sick.
Yeah. Well, I remember they had like maybe two marshals there, one at the top and one at the bottom.
Yeah, not security, just marshals. Yeah.
Well, the marshals were just for the course. They weren't for the spectators.
Well, they were supposed to be trying to do both, and like,
oh really?
Yeah,
I've never seen a marshal do spectator control ever.
Yeah, it had been fenced off, and they were like, "Nah, you have to get back." And I can't remember whether it was seeding day or race day. I'm pretty sure it was seeding day. Seeding, one of the two anyway. Like the seeding runs or race runs got pushed back. Like the timing just kept getting pushed back further and further and further. No, it was seeding because I remember seeing all the group chats. There was like a bunch of the guys were like waiting to drop in at the top to do their seeding run. And there's messages like, what the fuck's going on? We're freezing cold because the track started like, I don't know, maybe a fifth of the way into like the hill, maybe not even that, maybe like 1/6 of the way into like Medina Bike Park if you're going from the very top.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So they're just like in the trees, and it was like
just for anyone that is familiar with Medina, it started at the express lane chute.
Yeah, right.
If you've never been to Medina, you have no idea what that means. But if you have been, you know where that is.
Well, how many meters of elevation was the course? Do you remember off the top of your head? It'd be like 600-700.
Yeah, high sixes,
Yeah.
about 700, 680
Yeah.
maybe.
It's
Yeah, so
like,
again,
to put it in
actually know.
perspective, like as a photographer, media dude, it's one of the only places I'll wear a jumper, a jacket, and shorts, like in the same spot, because it's the top and the bottom are completely different. It's unreal.
Yeah, and it was absolutely pissing down rain. It was windy as fuck, like just cold, miserable weather. And they just had to hold the riders at the top, and they weren't allowed to drop in because they were trying to manage the spectators at that corner. And they were like, they had fence. Yeah. That's the whole reason.
They didn't tell us that.
Yeah, that's why seating took so long, is because they had all those people like on top of the berm and stuff, and they were trying to get it under control and get people off the corner and all that sort of stuff. And the spectators weren't having a bar of it. And you get people down, and then more people would rock up, because I guess they weren't there for the start of seating, but like they wanted to see the second half of seating or whatever. Yeah. And they just walk past like wherever the crowd of people are, because they see that there's like, oh, there's a bit of a path this way. I'll go and stand up on the corner. So it'd be like they'd get rid of that crowd, and then the next crew would just walk up there. So it was sort of like they were just trying so hard to manage these spectators. And it's just like, so it took like huge disruptions to.
As a rider, though, it was sick.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah. For how wet it was in my seating run, I think I felt like it was just raining the entire time. But from what a few people have said, like myself and Connor and Booker and like the couple riders surrounding us, we were kind of in the middle. We apparently got like the worst of the rain, and like coming into that feature, I was like, I'm gonna have to pull over. Like, this is just fucking ridiculous, like how slippery this is. And like anyone who's ridden Maydena in the wet knows how slippery like the hard pack sections of trail get. Like try riding like Supercross, for example, when it's wet. Like it's just ice. And I was like, I'm going to go off this bridge, which I know is grippy, like the timber's grippy because we've painted it with like grippy paint. But I'm just going to land on like an icy berm and then go round an icy berm and then go off an icy lip. Like I'm about to die.
Yeah. And there's so much leaning all through that whole section too. Like lean one way, then switch through the drain and lean the other way. Like,
yeah. But you're just like, but also I know there's like probably like 1,000 people down there waiting for me to come through, and they're all standing out here in the pissing rain, and it's hardline. You're just like, just got to keep going. And granted, it was actually all good. Like, I'm glad that the good thing about hardline is that like it is very rider focused, and riders' safety is number one. Like we had a meeting in the morning. It was predicted it was going to be windy and wet. So the outcome was that we just decided we would finish after the container gap. So we wouldn't even go out into the trees, into the big jumps at the bottom. Like we just wouldn't even bother, which was really good because you knew that you didn't have to ride that, which would have been death in the wind and wet. But I don't know. Yeah, you just like got to ride it. But I remember landing the road gap and just stopping before the end of the cannon, and then seeing Dan Atherton, and like it's just pissing down rain, and I just had a chat to him, and I was like, so do these conditions qualify me for Wales, or like what do I need to do here?
That's sick.
So yeah,
but I think touching on that real quick, Baxter, it being rider orientated, that was something that I definitely noticed as well. And this kind of touches on, and we won't go into the full details of it, but like, when the slopestyle athletes all, went on a bit of a strike in Rotorua, it was for the same sort of reasons. I think the cool thing about like hardline, whether that's because I don't know if it's the fact that it's Red Bull behind it, and Red Bull, as much as like it's an energy drink. It's all of those sort of things. They do really care about their athletes, and they want their athletes to be safe and to be in a healthy manner. So when they run events like this, they definitely take on what the athletes are saying and will cater to that. They will listen to everything that you've got to say. Changes need to be made midway through practice. They'll get some random guy from Queenstown to shape it up and change it because they need it to happen. But no, like what I'm saying is like with the whole slopestyle thing that happened in Rotorua, those riders didn't feel like they were being heard. And from the insiders information that I had with working on all of that sort of stuff, it was because they were kind of just being forced to ride to a time schedule, was like the biggest thing behind it. And it was like, regardless of what's happening, this is the best time to run our event. This is when it's going to have to happen. And you end up riding into the sunlight or into the wind and all that kind of stuff. And people can call those athletes pretentious or whatever. But when you're hitting jumps to that side, or you're riding stuff that risky, these things make such a huge difference. And when the rain came in at Medina, it was the same. It was the same thing. It's like, I don't know how much speed you would be able to gain down the bottom section to be able to clear that bottom 70-foot jump. I don't think in the weight you'd be able to do it.
No way. No. I haven't been there and I can tell. But talking on that, one, Red Bull is a media company that sells a drink. Like the athletes are a bigger product to them than what that drink is. So they're going to protect that as much as they possibly can.
Yeah.
And then I'll say pretty much anything, like straight away without thinking about much. But like, I know I won't say anything about slopestyle athletes or hardline riders not riding because fuck, you won't see me upside down doing a fucking tail whip in the best conditions ever with someone holding me. Like, you're not going to see it happen.
Dane was trying to get me to do flip cans onto his airbag the other day and I couldn't do it.
But you're not going to do that when it's windy and raining.
Exactly.
You're on an airbag.
Actually, one thing that, like, talking on, like, you wouldn't do that. Dane's dad, we won't mention his name. But he did tell me that, like, Dane will go out and ride the airbag in the wind and he'll be encouraged to go and do it, which is one thing that a lot of the slopestyle guys won't do. But it's literally just to train and prepare for those worst case scenarios and like be ready like for it to happen. So you're like, at least you're like, not like crazy wind where you're like, this is too windy, but it's like, you know, if there's a little bit of wind going on, you're not just like, oh, don't know, I probably won't ride today. But it's like
being prepared to be unsafe is like one of the safest things you can do, right?
Yeah. And like what safer way to do it than like practicing on the airbag and understanding what the wind does to your bike. But you can't really do that for hardline either. Like,
sorry, man. I'm just going to head down the road and build a 70-footer so I can just go and practice that for a minute.
Yeah. But no, I think like as, you know, I was essentially like, I was treated as if I was an athlete while I was there, like part of, you know, the riders list, even though I didn't race. And the way that they looked after people was phenomenal. You compare it to, say, 100%. You know, I've never been to a World Cup, so I won't even touch base on that. But from what I've heard, it's not great. But like, if you look at a national event, is not going to compare to how well everyone is looked after at these events. It does make a difference that you've only got essentially 30 people to look out for, not hundreds. So you're just but also, one group chat.
If you could do a quarter of what they did for us at a national round, even if it was just for elite, or even if it was just for UCI categories, under 19s and elite, like people would like, it would be so appreciated.
Well, it's the same thing again. Like those clubs, those organisers, even though it's volunteer run, but there are national bodies. I'm going to mention the name, but they wouldn't exist if there weren't riders.
You're talking about that the Tricycle Australia? No,
Tricycle Australia. Man, probably doing a better job.
Bike AU or something.
Yeah, MTBA. Maybe.
What's that? Is that still around?
No.
I wish they were.
Now, obviously,
I wish they were too.
They are around actually. Like all the staff are still there. I caught up with a bunch of them in Awaba, and
It's still there.
It's still there.
Anyway,
we all know that Hardline was a precursor to a much, much bigger event.
we should probably talk. We should probably move on, eh?
Yeah.
Well, actually, we didn't even talk about my race run yet.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, we'll talk about that,
man.
We will talk about that. But I just want to say real quick, I personally don't care how long this podcast goes, and I'm the one that's in the latest time zone for all of us. And I think this is our best podcast that we've ever done.
Yeah,
like that's ever even been recorded. So let's just roll with it. Let's go with details. Everything. It
started off pretty rocky for me because I couldn't hear anything that was going on. So I'm probably just sitting there as a mute. But
that's why I keep turning.
Thanks for that, Jai.
I keep turning my video off so that every time you're talking, so it cuts down on the bandwidth. So hopefully you don't jam out too much. Actually, if you want to keep talking about racing, and just before we go into that, and rider safety, Dan Booker's crash was fucked up. That was unreal.
I was so gutted for him. Hey,
and
have you spoken to him about it, Jai?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk on it? I can talk on it. I spoke to him a fair bit about it too.
No, you've probably talked to him about it more than I have.
Yeah, I've talked to him about it, but I can't remember what I said or what was said. But
for anyone that hasn't seen it, basically, Dan Booker's race run at Red Bull Hardline unfortunately lasted for all of 6 seconds.
Oh, that's pushing it. That's pushing it.
Yeah, that probably is pushing it.
It was definitely within it was probably within the first 10 meters of course.
It was quite literally the first feature. So you come out the start gate, you go down a tiny little drop thing, and then you drop into the first chute on the track. And that first chute is the only section of the entire trail that was existing bike park. So as I mentioned before, that chute is the express lane chute. So everything else on the course was built specifically for Red Bull Hardline. It was all brand new, fresh trail, except for the first chute, which is myself and Dan, especially Dan. That's like part of our everyday lap that we would ride every single lap for literally like the last few years. So you could say that we may have had a local advantage for that specific 50 meters of track. And talking to Dan about it, I think that was I'd love him to tell this story himself, but my recounts of the conversations were that because we've ridden that so many times, he kind of felt like that was where he could really just push right out the gate and kind of set the tone for his race run. And I spoke to him when I was speaking to him, he said that if he had his time again, he wouldn't go in any slower.
Really?
But yeah, he just said, nah, no, not a fucking chance. That's how far I was. He's like, I was committed to win it or bin it kind of attitude, which
he binned it.
Well, he binned it, yeah, but yeah, I think he just he was on a new bike, new suspension, potentially a bit oversprung for the rest of the track. And he said he just blew a hand off on one of the compressions down the chute, and then when he hit the final compression at the bottom, both hands blew off, and he basically just rode straight to his face, really. So yeah, unfortunate for Dan. He was probably one of the local favourites, and definitely somebody that I was pretty keen to see what he could do on that course, because he was looking pretty fucking comfortable all week.
Oh yeah, it was he was making riders nervous. Because I remember, I can't remember who I was with. I can't remember. I was with one of the riders, and I think Sven Martin was on the side of the course, and he was like, "Oh, don't worry, bro. Like that's Dan Booker. Like he's fucking tapped, and he's a local. Like he's a phenomenal rider. Like don't even compare yourself to him. Well, like you're with some of like the world's best." And you've got like one of the world's best photographers that have been shooting some of the fastest riders on the planet saying, don't worry about Dan. He's on another level. Like you don't need to worry about comparing yourself to him. He's going to smoke you anyway. Like,
I still remember like one of the most impressive things that I saw Dan do that whole week was just how do I describe where it is? So immediately after that like left-hand turn, that there's that viral video of Jackson and a few other guys just squaring it off and like shrouding as like a little drop into like an insane left-hander. The track goes like it jumps right, and then there's like probably this one of the gnarliest like off camber sections with like a couple bomb holes.
About that section,
and yeah, well, it's a forgettable section, but where I think it was when it was the first day of practice when we were still all in a group and sessioning every single bit, and I'd like ridden down that bit and was just at the bottom, and Dan comes through. Like I'd watch Jackson come through, I'd watch Laurie come through, I'd watch like a few other fast boys come through, and they're kind of like getting a feel for it, and then Dan comes through just on like an absolute heater. But to him, he was just cruising, just like made the hardest section look like it was nothing. I don't know, that's just like burnt into my brain.
And let's take a
should we keep moving?
But let's just take a brief moment to appreciate his Maven video that he did the other day of him like caveman dropping into that. I can shoot.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I bumped into him. Like I went round to his house. I can't remember whether it was the day that he did it or a couple of days. It was just before he posted it, and I remember him talking about it. But I didn't see the video. He was just like talking to one of the other boys that like shot the video, and he's like, like kind of wish I did that a little bit better. Like, but it was just like it's so insane the stuff that Dan puts out. And he's like, I'm not sure about that. And you like see the other one that he did that went viral from Speed and Style. And it's just like the flip to manual. And you're like, what? But
he spent the entire Speed and Style practice trying to do that. And yeah, I was staying, like we were staying together for that week.
Same.
And he was like, well, oh yeah, you were too, Jai. Yeah. And he was
for a night.
Yeah, he was like, basically, he's like, well, because I want a trail bike. Like, he's like, I'm probably not going to like win the event, so I may as well get like something useful out of it. So he's like, okay, I'm just going to try and do this flip to manual, and arguably that was better for him because I think he got enough views on that he got like a little bonus from Santa Cruz or SRAM or something. So good on you.
What I really love about Dan's Instagram, first off, like obviously Dan went on an Instagram hiatus for like 12 months. And he's like, I'm not posting anything on social media. Like I'm just staying off it and just riding my bike. But what he's also, I don't know if it's still there or not, but in his bio a while ago, it literally just said my highlight reel with like a sun emoji. And that's what I think everyone needs to take from that, is that this is not like what we get up to all the time. This is just the stuff that we want to post. And then when he did stuff like that viral video, he put up like the clips afterwards of how many times it took him to get it. And it's like, and he did the same thing with that Maven video, like how long it took him to like drop into it. And you're like, I appreciate that so much because it doesn't make it look like he's just so talented that he can do this first go every time. Like, oh my God, like how am I not that good of a rider? And then you see it took like 100 goes to get that manual. You're like, yeah, that puts things into real perspective of how difficult the thing is that he made look so easy.
Yeah. The other thing too that seems a bit unfair at this point about Dan's Instagram is that he's just completely hacked the algorithm. Like anybody else to have something like blow up and go viral, no matter how good the content is, would have to post somewhat consistently. And Dan's just like every now and then just post something just at a random time, boom, guaranteed to blow up.
Yeah, but I actually say another person that's the same as that, and this comes down to like their skill level on the bike. Matt Begg.
Yeah.
I went onto Matt Begg's Instagram today, and like I can't remember when it was that his last post was, but like third post was from like the third most recent post was from February. And I'm like, how are you only posting once every month or two? And like you're blowing up on socials. And it's like he only posts the best stuff. And it's like the rest of it, just fuck it.
Like, it's crazy.
I've been posting every day because I've seen that I've started to get a bit of traction. And then I'm like, all right, I need to keep this traction going. Otherwise I'm going to fall off and no one's going to know who I am. And then winter's about to hit here. And I'm just going to put the account in hibernation for a couple of months.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea. I'd be pretty tempted to do the same, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll just say that I'm taking a mental health break.
Yeah.
Back to that question I asked like half an hour ago. How's your race on, Baxter?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, what time is it? Holy shit.
Oh, before we drop into that, no,
shut up, guys.
I just want to take a moment to talk about suspension setup.
No,
that was a joke in our last podcast. Slow. But anyway, we will talk about suspension setup for Hardline because I'm sure people are interested in that. But let's talk about your race.
Stiff. I'm not talking about suspension.
I can talk about my suspension setup in 2 seconds. It was harder than usual, stiffer than usual, and slightly slower in the rebound. That was all you had to do. Anyway, my race.
I missed all of that because my auxiliary cord came out.
Perfect. You can listen to it later.
You were there. You experienced it live. You're fine.
My race run was after all this time going around in circles to get there, I don't even really know how to explain it. It was very safe considering that we were at Hardline. Like I didn't have a very good seeding run because I struggled in the conditions, which didn't particularly give me any kind of like measure of where I felt like I sat. So I just had to go and just do some bike riding at my own pace, I suppose. And I put down a run that I was happy enough with. I didn't particularly make any major mistakes. I didn't particularly feel like I went slow, but I also didn't particularly push very hard, and I didn't exactly go that fast. It was like I was the fastest free rider, but I was the slowest racer. So it depends how you want to look at it, because I kind of sit somewhere in the middle.
Well, that's like pretty spot on to like where your brand is, right? Like you are literally between free rider and racer. Like you finish exactly where you're supposed to be.
If I was looking at it from a racing perspective, I probably would have liked to finish a bit higher, and I know that I could have. But yeah, at the same time, if I'm looking at it as being a free rider, I rode pretty damn fast. So yeah, I don't know. It was a weird one to swallow, because like I know that I probably could have done better and gone faster and got a better result, but also, like I said, it was a good run, and I didn't particularly do anything silly, and I made it to the end of the weekend, which
Dan Booker did not.
You know, Dan Booker didn't. Like there were
neither did Jackson Goldster.
Yeah, there were other riders that, you know, either had to pull out or crashed or whatever. So I think for the event that it was, and for how much meaning that play, like how much meaning a result gives, other than basically like no one cares unless you win that race, really. So like it's not like it matters for points or anything. So yeah, no, overall I was like pretty happy with it, I think. I'd like to go back next year. Hope they get invited back.
Are you going to Wales?
Nah, I'm staying home.
Really? When did that happen?
And this is like a whole nother thing. So, in the last couple of weeks, like working with Super Dust on my nutrition and just general health and strength and conditioning and stuff. We've done a bunch of tests, and I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before, Darren, maybe on the last one that we did, about this like ongoing undiagnosed sickness that I can't seem to shake.
We've spoken about
Jai,
it.
you would have seen it when I was in Queenstown, just getting fucking sick all the time.
Mm.
And
I was actually thinking about this the other day.
Yeah, still haven't really like figured out what it was. A few times I've thought that I have, but it's kind of just led me back to where I've been. Like even all of Hardline week, like I was surprised that I made it to Notion Jam because I was fucked from Hardline. But anyway, long story short, getting back to the question, the reason I'm not going to Europe is because I'm just going to stay in one spot for a little bit. I'm going to go to Cairns, come back, but I'm already on like a pretty strict diet and supplement plan, trying to fix a bunch of like gut health issues. Did some gut health testing, and basically the results came back as pretty fucking not good. So
surprised you hitting jumps that big with no guts.
But
I had a gut
long story short, I've had a gut full of you, Jai.
Jeez, you just showed up on the big screen, Darren, and your lighting is impeccable.
Yeah, Jai's getting a bit drunk. But yeah, anyway, so James, who's the coach from Super Dust, he's also got a background as a nutritionist, and he basically said a lot of sicknesses stem from imbalances in the gut. So that's kind of where you start. He was pretty surprised that nobody else had looked there or started there. So we did that testing, found a bunch of things that are at the wrong levels or just shouldn't be there, or there's too much of something or whatever. So as everyone knows, it's pretty hard to keep a strict diet whilst you're traveling. So yeah, I'm just going to stay home and spend a bit of time, like pretty much 100% focused on trying to get healthy finally, because it's been about 2 years of chasing my tail, just getting sick all the time, and I'm pretty over it, as you could imagine. Rather than spend a bunch of money and go overseas and perform at 80%, I may as well stay home and get to 100% and just, I think I'm just going to go straight to Canada. Still go overseas at some point, but just go through this like we're already a few weeks in, but it's like a 10 to 12 week program.
Sick. That's good, man. We get to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're getting on top of it, because, like I said to you, like I literally thought about it just the other day, because like we hadn't spoken about it in like months. I think it was before you even came to Queenstown, and you were telling me that you were struggling with it, and I was like, "Fuck, I wonder whatever happened with all of that sort of stuff." I just assumed that you got on top of it. Yeah, I didn't even realize that it was still going on. Like that's pretty hectic, man. Like I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, it's fucking. Hopefully, it sorts it out. Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Can we just pause for 1 sec? No, I just made a noise. I was going to check on it.
That. I'm going to do a wee.
Okay,
just take the mic with you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good break. Let's talk about Notion, because fuck, that looks sick. How do you think it went off, Bax? Like, just overall, like as they're organized.
I'm interested to hear
it's
this.
Good. Yeah. It. I think when like you've invested that much of your own time and money and just like passion into something, like you have this insane, like extravagant picture of what you're hoping it's going to be in your head. And I think like when you've built it up to be this massive thing, and I mean, it kind of was like a pretty big thing, I suppose. But when you like built it up and hyped it up in your own head so much, like it's hard for the real life thing to live up to those like pretty unrealistic expectations, I suppose. It's a pretty long-winded way of saying like it wasn't as good as I'd hoped. But in saying that, like I think it was still pretty sick. I, as like an organizer, there was just a lot of things that I didn't account for because I didn't know that I needed to account for them, and a lot of like stress of like organizing people or things or just doing shit that I didn't know needed to be done until it needed to be done, kind of thing. So that took away a lot of me being able to actually enjoy the event, and like my experience of the event was like very different to anybody that just simply came along as a rider. Like talking to like some of the other crew, they were like, yeah, man, it was like pretty chill. It was like real sick, like, you know, good times, whatever. Whereas I was like, it didn't feel chill at all.
That's really funny. That's really funny that you say that, Baxter, because I was about to say the opposite. Like coming from Hardline, I didn't even race at Hardline. Like I just rocked up and rode my bike. But coming to Notion was a completely different vibe to everything else. You rocked up there, and if you felt like riding your bike, you ride your bike. If you didn't feel like riding your bike, you didn't ride your bike. Like, end of story. And I think that part of it is probably what played the stress on you a little bit as well, because some people that you wanted to have there riding their bike didn't want to ride their bike as well. And that's like, I don't know if that like played a part for you at all, but like, you know, when you're going into an event like this and you've put so much into it and you want the best possible result, but we're all there and we're just like, fuck, this is pretty cool. Like we can just ride our bike whenever we feel like it and just have fun. And there's no pressure, or there's no one like in the group chat like, hey, 10 o'clock, you guys have to be on the shuttle bus. Like we're going at this time, be at the top. Photographers are going to be here. Filmers are going to be there. Have you guys got your wristbands? Have you got this? Have you got that? Are you ready to go? There was none of that. It was just like, other than the fact that we were like trying to dodge like wind windows, it was just so much more chill. And if anyone just decided to like stop riding for a little bit and just go sit down and watch, like that wasn't fucking weird. Like it was just
it was a jam for sure. I think from Stu's perspective, that was probably more stressful for him having like people not riding. I didn't really care. Like I didn't really care who we had turn up either. I was like, like there was a lot of, and I get it from Stu's end of like wanting to have the best of the best there to hopefully get the biggest reach possible, et cetera, like with all the content. But for me, I mainly wanted to run that event, to ride with some like big international crew that, you know, I wanted to ride with. Like it was sick that Chaos came, sick that Dennis and all those boys came and Jim and whatnot. But like I was frothing to ride with like you and ride with Leroy and Jaden and like just my mates that like wouldn't otherwise get that opportunity. Like all the big names, they get the opportunities to go ride Fest Series or go ride, you know, the Cam Zink Invitational or whatever it might be. Like that's what they get the opportunity to do. But these like the Notion jumps right from the get-go were built by me because being a free rider in Australia, there are very little opportunities elsewhere. We don't really get invited to like go ride big jumps in other countries. We don't have any of our own big jumps to ride, which is probably part of the reason that people don't know that we can do that sort of shit. So I was like, what if I can't get invited to go ride Festoos and we don't have anything that big to ride here? I may as well just build it. And like that was where the whole idea of that video project came from.
Yeah, to put it into perspective for the people, like for the listeners, like because obviously Darren and I both know all about Notion and where it came from and everything. But to everyone that's listening, like so Baxter did a video project a couple of years ago on one of our mates' private property. Like, is it south of Hobart?
West.
Okay.
West? Northwest.
It's definitely not north, is it? No, because you come in from the south side. If we're saying northwest, south,
nah, because you go.
What are we naming Kanye's kids?
It's probably west. I don't know. It's west. I would say west, southwest.
Anyway, you look it up, Baxter. So
you keep telling the story.
Yeah. So basically, Baxter did a video project. And like, if anyone that hasn't seen it, like it's really cool.
Southwest.
There you go. It's really cool. And it's something that Australia hasn't seen before. It's big, fast, steep jumps. And it was originally, for that video, but Baxter had it in the back of his mind that he definitely wanted to be able to have a jam here in the future and invite people to come and ride these jumps so that they're not just a one and done kind of thing. And then knowing that Hardline and everything was coming up seemed definitely like the best time to do it is to run it straight after Hardline. We've got so many people over there and have this jam on his jumps. And like all of us are so grateful for you doing that. Because like, as I said to you on the phone and like earlier in the podcast as well, I probably wouldn't have even come over to Hardline. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to ride Hardline if you didn't do that jam, because I wouldn't have come. Because it's like, but knowing that there was that going on, there was Tom's jam and all that sort of stuff, I'm like, well, I've got an excuse to come back to Australia. Because for me, I moved to Queenstown because we've got big jumps over here, and that's all I do every day. It's just what I want to do. So for me, it was a really crazy experience to see so many of us people over here in Queenstown going to Australia to go and ride jumps. Like that was the mind-blowing thing for me. That you're getting us to leave Dream Track and come and ride your shit. Like it was fucking cool. And like people like Billy, he came over and missed Hardline because he mixed up his dates. And so one of our buddies, Billy Spurway, he's an English guy. He had flights to come over with his missus and, check out Hardline and whatever. But the main thing he was coming over for was Baxter's Jam. But he was like, well, I'll just book my flights to come over for the competition day of Hardline so I can watch that. And then I'll go to Baxter's Jam afterwards. And they were like driving up on like the Saturday afternoon. They flew in the Saturday morning.
They assumed race day would be on Sunday, which is a fair assumption.
Yeah. And they were just like, took their time coming from the airport. Like, I don't know. I think they just did like a little bit of sightseeing or something, like just dawdled. And then as they were getting like closer and closer to Medina, which for those that haven't been out there is the middle of nowhere, they saw so much traffic coming away from Medina. And they're like, where are all these people going? Like, what's happened? Have we missed it? And then it was at that point when they saw all this traffic that they looked up like the schedule and they saw they completely missed all of the race runs. And they like literally rocked up for the after party of Hardline. And I forgot that they were even coming. And like just like bumped into him and Ella. And I was like, oh my God, like, hi guys. What are you doing here? And they're like, we're here for Notion. We tried to come for Hardline, but we missed it. Like there were so many of us that came over. Like David Perisnani, that was also a Hardline, wouldn't have come over if it wasn't for your jam. So it's literally, it is an international event. Like whether you're just bringing people in that like are already here because of Hardline, there's a huge stack of us Well, like Jaden, Leroy, all of those guys, like they didn't come over for Hardline at all. They literally came down for Notion. So
I think
what you've done,
there's definitely like, I think they can definitely like work to whether the events directly work together, but like they definitely work together in a sense of like either, you know, you're coming to race Hardline, but you're a free rider, so it kind of gives you more reason. Or if you're just going to come for the jam, then, you know, you're going to come and watch Hardline. And then I'd like to build it to a point where like spectators can come watch Hardline, stay in Tassie for the week, and come out and watch the jam too.
Well, it's
that would be sick.
It makes sense, right? If you've got Crankworx, New Zealand, you've got Red Bull Hardline, you need some time to kill and like have a good event in between. Like it makes perfect sense. Like I don't understand why there's 2 or 3 months between Crankworx Cairns and New Zealand, and now no one's going to go to Crankworx Cairns. Like,
can I just say something really quick? Have you thought, Baxter, about the fact that you have, other than like say McGazza Fest, that's like, you know, it's a big festival that's not just Dream Track, it's like it's everywhere. Have you thought about the fact that you are the first person in the Southern Hemisphere really to throw a big air event?
Other than Cam
White Jam? Not really.
Other than what, sorry?
Well, yeah. Cam White's jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean like when I say big air, I mean like big bike air jumps.
Yeah. No, not really. But do you think the jumps are big enough to count as big air?
Yeah. 100% without a doubt.
Sweet.
Without a doubt.
Sweet.
Like
that's good.
You wouldn't, like, you could ride them on the hardtail, but you wouldn't want to. Like what I classify
shit on a hardtail, I reckon.
Yeah. What I classify as big air, I guess it's all open to interpretation. But like the classification of big air to me is jumps that you have to ride on a downhill bike, and you're like, they're like trails but on a downhill bike. It's like big bike, and big air time.
DHT, downhill trails.
DHT, I heard something like that. But it's like it's just big air. It's riding jumps, but on big bikes. Like because you can say free ride, and free ride can be rampage or anything that's like you just throw your bike down, you're just having a good time. But big air is its own kind of like little genre. And we haven't had one of those jams in the Southern Hemisphere before ever. And that was like that. Was like I spoke to you on the phone about this as well, where I was like, I was umming and ahhing what the fuck I was doing, but I had to like check myself and just be like, I really want to be riding big air events. My fucking best mate is holding one 3 hours flight from here. Why the fuck would I not go? Like, I
appreciate that you came.
Yeah, you're the first one to do it, and I'm so stoked about it. And I think it means that it's going to kind of like open up the doors to more of these sort of events happening, whether it's like your jam or someone else decides like, well, this is a cool thing to do. Like, let's do something similar. And they're not copying you. But yeah, go on.
No, well, I'm just copying fucking other people anyway. At the end of the day, like, I'm not the first one to like build a big jump and ride it on my downhill bike. Like, it's been done, just hasn't been done in a location where I can ride it myself.
Yeah.
Like that's the only difference. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just trying to let people in Australia use the wheel.
Yeah.
I suppose.
And it's like such a big thing. So we've got the Reddington bros down here, Trav, Shay, and Kai. Fucking nut jobs. Like the wildest humans, nicest humans you'll ever meet, but wildest. And there's
they're pretty loose.
In the best way possible. But like, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that they could all jump those things, and Kai could flip the step up. Like, they could all flip that step up.
Yeah.
Like, without doubt in my mind. But they don't have anywhere in Australia to do that. Like, they went to ACT Jam and had a good time there, but like, that's it.
Darren's fishing for an invite.
Yeah.
Notion.
Well, I already said just hit me up.
I've already got an invite to Notion, mate.
Yeah. What was I going to say? The thing that I found the wildest when I went to Queenstown last year and rode Dream Track, like when I built Notion originally, I'd never been like, they were the biggest jumps I'd ever ridden by far or built. And I'd never ridden Dream Track before that. And then like obviously in the Southern Hemisphere, people, I suppose, they if you think of Dream Track, you kind of think of like that's like some of the biggest jumps that we have down here. And I guess I was just trying to build the biggest stuff that I could based off of what I'd seen on the internet, not with my own eyes. So to build that stuff as big as it is, and then have, you know, guys like Jai and whatnot come and ride it all these years later, and kind of like, and even myself to go to Queenstown and kind of validate like that it's not just big because you haven't seen anything else big in a while. Like it is actually of a worthy size, so to speak. I don't know really what I'm trying to say, but like it was pretty sick to have everyone come over and be like, oh fuck yeah, right, these aren't like, they're not little.
We're not fucking around here. Yeah. Especially like coming off like the jam at Medina, like with what Tom built. And this comes back to like what I was saying earlier about like Tom's jumps being the bridge between Mini Dream and Dream Track. Yeah. We had just been like sessioning at Tom's jumps, and like they were so fun, like super playful jumps. And then we come out to yours and things went up a notch. And we're like, okay, fuck, like we're going a bit bigger here. Like it's fucking cool. Like, yeah, they were really sick jumps. They were definitely a lot bigger than what not what I was expecting, because I'd seen your video that you did, and I know you hit me up a few times, like asking, like comparing to Dream or whatever. And like it was a completely different thing. Like you don't compare it to Dream. The gaps were bigger.
Nah.
Like
I think mine are a bit longer, but they may be not as steep.
Yeah. But it means that like it's in the same ballpark. Like you essentially just built your own version of Dream Track, and everyone wants to like compare to Dream Track, and you're like, you want to build something similar to that because it's something that works. And again, something else we touched on earlier in the podcast with like Hardline being something that's been going for 10 years and it's been developed year after year after year after year. And you came out with your video project where you're like, this is the first time I've ever built big jumps, and I'm going to build the biggest jumps I can possibly do. And you killed it, man. Like having all of us there riding it and the smile on everyone's face, like especially Jaden. I think to give an award for like the most smiley person, it had to be Jaden. Like he had so much fun, man. And he wasn't even on his own bike. He was on a rental.
Yeah. Like, I think that made it like better for him though, because he wasn't expecting that he was actually going to be able to ride, and then obviously he got to borrow a bike off someone and did get laps. So I think that meant they were a bit more special for him.
But yeah, like
long story short.
Darren, can we just give like a quick round of applause to Baxter?
I don't think clapping comes through, but it tweaks out on the.
That's right. Well, we clapped for anyone that's listening.
Yeah, we're going to make the jumps better for next year.
That to be like Jai's got the clap, but anyway,
we're gonna make the jumps better for next year. After like again, having everyone come ride was the first time I'd ever ridden them with anybody. Because until that point, like myself and Rowan is the bloke who owns the property, and I think we should be giving Rowan a round of applause, because without that dude, like this 100% wouldn't be possible. The amount of like resources and time and just everything that guy's like donated to the cause to have jumps in his backyard. Like, would absolutely wouldn't happen without Rowan's generosity. So, round of applause to Rowan. But what was I saying? I lost my train of thought there.
It was also pretty sick just to see how committed you guys were to media. Like, no one in Australia has that much media. Like, no one.
Well, I think that has to go off to Stu, really. For like,
he tipped a lot of his own. He tipped a lot of his own cash into like getting all that crew down there, and like usually, like a lot of those dudes wouldn't get off the couch for anything other than their day rate, and they all come down like pretty much unpaid, like just to be a part of it all. So, like, appreciate everyone that came down and was a part of it, and like kind of understands that it wasn't a money making exercise. Like it cost me and Stu and Rowan like thousands of our own dollars to put it on, but it's a starting point, and hopefully next year we can build it and make it bigger and better, and not to like make money out of it, but hopefully it makes enough money that it doesn't cost us money.
But like, nice. You say like the filmers won't get off their couch for the day rate, but it's not because they're greedy, but they're of that caliber. Like,
well, that's it. Yeah,
like their caliber, caliber of media.
Thanks.
There's no one. No, it's like there was no one there that I don't aspire to be like as far as media goes. Like,
pretty much, Stu's words pretty much, like when we were talking about it, was like he didn't actually name names. Like this was ages ago when we're all just figuring out logistics. He was like, yeah, mate, I've already locked in like a crew of 7 of like the most badass fucking camera operators in the country. And I was like, oh yeah.
How'd you get the money from that?
I was just thinking that he was like bringing it, because he owns obviously a media production company outside of Bikebot. And I was like, oh yeah, cool. He's just gonna like bring 7 of his like
interns,
staff down or whatever. And
work experience kids.
No, like it was, just 7 of like his staff, whatever. And then he sent me the list, and I was like, holy fuck! It's like you've gone all out here. Yeah, like
it was fucking cool.
That I could think of.
And because I spoke to him about it a little bit as well. And he said he pretty much like put his feelers out and like was just like, look, guys, I can't really promise you any money at all, but this is what's happening. We're shooting this event. We're trying to get it off the ground. Obviously nothing like this has ever been done in Australia before. So it's like quite scary for any
blueprint.
Yeah, it's quite scary for any brands to jump on board with it either. So it's just like, this is something completely new. And if you guys want to come and be a part of it, you're more than welcome to join. If you don't want to come, like, all good. But like the fact that like all of those guys and girls, who include Zoe, just like jumped at it, and they were like, fuck yeah, keen as. And like, cause Zoe messaged me and like, so Zoe's, we'll get into the other stuff with Zoe later.
We're still get into that. Yeah. Anyway.
That can be for another podcast, because I'm fucking hungry.
Oh, come on. And like, she spoke to me about.
It's been 2.5 hours, man.
Yeah, that's all right.
In the Rogan territory here.
Yeah.
She was the same thing, so keen to come over. And I think she actually messaged you, Baxter, and you just didn't respond. You just left her on red or something.
No, she messaged me, and no, I didn't leave her on. Well, I did leave her on red, yeah. But the reason,
I didn't know the reason for that. So well.
The reason for that was because I was talking to Stu, and I was like, "Hey, this like." I had no idea that she was friends with you at that point either, Joe. I was like, this random, like, seems French chick.
Seems French, yeah. Very French.
Off of, I know that now that I've met her. Last name. Exactly. But I was like, this random, like, photographer chick messaged me, like, seeing if she can come. I'm pretty sure she was asking, like, if there was any money in it or something.
Yeah.
And I just said to Stu, I was like, what do I tell her? And then I kind of got back to her. I was like, hey, look, yeah, like if you want to fund your own way here, like you're welcome to come, but like we can't pay you and I can't really promise you like accommodation or anything at this point. Like you can come, but I can't give you anything in return at this point. And I think at first she was like, oh yeah, all good. Like I can't afford to come if I'm not getting paid. And then I think when she was coming over with you, then she was like, all right, sweet. Well, I can make this like worth my time now.
Yeah.
Not that it wouldn't have been worth the time, but it's pretty expensive.
Oh, it's a super expensive trip to make. Like, well, no, when I say super expensive, it's not like flying to Europe or something like that. But it's still not cheap to fly to Tassie.
But if you're living off, if you're living on a budget in Queenstown, like it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, 100%.
If you're in mountain bike media, you're not getting paid millions. So anyway,
yeah,
you still get paid more than the riders do, though.
Truth.
Yeah. Truth. Well, Zoe is definitely not. She's working as a landscaper. Well, she just quit her job recently because she's gonna head back home to Europe. But yeah, like talking about like Zoe really quick. She's so fucking talented, and yeah, she asked me about coming over to Notion, and I think she said something about like messaging you and like not really knowing like what was going on or whatever, or like coming over, and I was like, I'll have a chat to Baxter, like, because I don't think she didn't realize that you and I were like best mates.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't realize that you guys were friends either.
Yeah, so I was just like, I'll have a chat to Baxter, and then like I guess we cleared it all up, and we're like, yeah, come over, and then she committed to the fact that she was coming over for Hardline as well, and she's like, yeah, we're gonna go shoot a video while we're there, and I was like, oh, okay, yep, sweet. She's like, will you have time? I was like, I'll make time, because at this point I was like, I'm not going to be riding in Hardline. And then that obviously ended up happening, which sort of like shortened our time frames a little bit. But I guess giving her a little plug, she's got a big video coming out. Not we'll talk about that a bit, but she's doing like a big piece with a bunch of different people from around Queenstown. So while we were over in Australia, we actually filmed secretly, don't tell anyone. We did a little bit of secret filming on Hardline after Hardline was finished up. And then we did a bunch of filming at Notion as well. So I'll have like about a 1 minute segment. And then she's got a bunch of stuff that she shot over here with some Frenchies, some English people, some everything. So I'm pretty excited to see that as well. But yeah, she's a GC. Big fan.
Yeah, she's good.
I'm definitely keen to come down to Notion next year and shoot some stuff. So
yeah, you just have, if you're going to bring a camera, you just have to go through Stu.
Already done.
That's not my. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Darren's already been. Go ahead.
I've already flew to Melbourne, put my knee pads on. We're going.
Yeah, cool.
But
I'm just not allowed to make those calls. I'm allowed to make calls on riders. I'm not allowed to make calls on videographers.
Can we have a quick
videoing? So it's going to be sick.
Whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Can we have a quick chat about Notion? Because I feel like we haven't actually spoken about what it was like riding those jumps. Like we've talked about like what the event was and all of that kind of stuff, but riding those jumps was something different.
Yeah, go on.
It was something different to what I've ever ridden in my life. Obviously ridden big jumps before, but that was a crazy experience riding jumps where you have to go as fast as you possibly could into these jumps that are fucking huge. And you're like, all right, if I want to do a flat spin on this jump, I've got to get everything fucking perfect. So
yeah,
that was a pretty surreal experience. Like it was almost like speed and style. Actually, that's probably like a really good definition. Except the difference with speed and style. No, like I'll get to it. But the difference between speed and style and your jumps is you have to go as fast as you possibly can to clear and trick your jumps. Whereas speed and style, the jumps seem to be built for trail speed, not for you're hitting them as fast as you possibly can. So that's like the two differences. But it
Spin
felt
style, you go as fast as you can and then you slow down for the jump. Whereas by jumps, you just go as fast as you can off the lip and then you sweep.
But that's what I mean. But go as fast as you can, but don't slow down. So that's like the difference. So like, because any other time that I've like ridden a jump where you want to go and do tricks and everything like that, you might go fast, but not as fast as you possibly can. Like if you're going to hit a jump just regularly, you just like, you ride it at regular speed. You want to do a trick, you need to go just a little bit faster because as you pull off the lip to trick, you will generally slow down a little bit in the air and come up a little bit shorter. So if you want to do a spin, you've got to go slightly faster than if you wanted to just jump the jump. But speed and style, you're racing. So you have to go as fast as you possibly can. But then you've got to jump. And a lot of the time in speed and style, the jumps are too small for when you're going that speed. But when you got to your jam, go as fast as you possibly can and don't let off the fucking brakes. Like fucking go for it. And like, and that was a cool experience. Like I know that like we've talked about like you're going to make some tweaks and all that sort of stuff, but that was like a different thing. Like I'm pretty stoked with how that all went of like hunting for speed for tricks.
See, this is like the whole other thing where we can like, you could go down a rabbit hole of bike setup though, but like for me, like with how my bike is set up to ride those jumps, I'm not going as fast as I can.
Yeah, but I want to make a comment on that real quick. Before you go on to your next statement, you and bloody Jackson Goldstone had a conversation at Magazafest and he asked you how you're going so high on that jump when you're not going very fast into it. Because he was going as fast as he possibly could to get that boost. And you were just like, oh, I just go normal speed and pull up. And like the rest of us are all hunting so hard.
Yeah. But also like Chaos wasn't going as fast. I spoke to Chaos during the jam, like Notion Jam, and he was like, I don't get why everyone's struggling. Like, because a couple of people were struggling to get some of the jumps. And he was like, I don't get why they're struggling. I was like, me neither. But I think we had very similar bike setups. If maybe we're even riding the same bike, I don't know.
Could be a possibility.
Canyon Talk's good for jumps.
What bike is that? Sorry, say it again.
It's a Canyon Talk.
Oh, okay. I might look into that.
So it's the Canyon like free ride board.
Canyon Talk. Okay. And the alloy version that you're running?
Yeah, I'm on the alloy version.
Okay, yeah. Cool. I'll make a note of that really quick.
Cool.
Yeah, moving on.
But yeah, it's funny you brought up that. Shut up. It's funny you brought up Magazafest though, because I think just before that conversation you spoke about, like obviously I can't do the best whips, and at Magazafest last year I hadn't flipped Dream yet. So aside from doing a tire grab, I didn't have much in my trick bag at that point, except for pulling back. And I knew that I could go I could go higher than most people. And Jackson was pulling back pretty hard as well and going quite high. And I remember like being like, oh, let's do a train. And he followed me, and I'm pretty sure like didn't pull back and still cased the jump because of how slow I was going. But I just thought that was just how far. I was like, I don't know, why would you need to go fast? You just pump the landing a bit harder and pull. It's all good. But yeah, he said he was doing like 3 cranks at the top into the rollers and then like going as fast as he could. And I was just doing a standard like 1 crank.
That's so gnarly, man.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like because I've started working on my pull up.
When I flip Dream though.
You get the same speed.
When I flip Dream, I just go the same speed as if I normally jump it.
Yeah, and you boost with your flips as well.
Yeah.
which is pretty sick. Like you probably go almost as high when you flip as to what you do when you pull back on a lip. Like you do high flips.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, which is like why I'm glad that you're not around anymore, because then my flips don't look as low.
Except for that one flip I did at Notion where I pushed through and landed dead flat and fucking ripped my shin open.
That was unreal.
Oh yeah, let's talk about talk about shin pads, shall we?
Yeah, are you running some now? I am.
No, I'm not yet. But my housemate has sent me, like, he's over in Germany at the moment, and he sent me photos twice of like some old soccer shin pads and asked if I'm interested in them, because I was like talking about how my shin's fucked. But
no,
like,
I got the hot tip off Dane.
Yeah.
Dane Fault, because I was talking to him about what shin pads he runs, expecting him to tell me some like fancy BMX ones. And he just gets the $35 hockey shin pads from Rebel Sport.
Yeah, right. And you're just running them.
The soccer ones only cover like a tiny bit of your shin, whereas the hockey ones, they're basically just like a piece of plastic that just wraps around your entire calf.
Interesting.
Yeah. I remember we used to run volleyball pads when because all we used to get was like hard cap BMX ones that were like down in day knees bullshit. We used to run volleyball ones because they were $10 and they fit under your jeans.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these ones are like, they're super thin. Like you don't even notice you got them on. Like your knee pad's bulkier. And they're basically just, like a piece of plastic that's like molded to the shape of your entire fucking lower leg. And they just got like a bit of foam on the inside. And I whacked my shin real hard the other day learning bar spins. And like my shin was bruised from the impact of the pedal, but like obviously no cut or anything.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah. So like the reason...
they're $35. Sorry, go.
Yeah, I was going to say the reason behind why we started talking about shin pads was... I can't remember what day it was that we're in. Maybe day 2.
It was day 2. The only injuries we had all weekend from Notion Jam were me and Jai needing stitches in our shins.
Yeah. Baxter overshot a flip and slipped a pedal and then just smashed his shin. Like ripped it pretty fucking gnarly. And had to go to the hospital and get it stitched up. And oh my God. Baxter, I can't remember how much we actually talked about it, but when you left, all of a sudden organization went downhill fast. And it was like, I kind of like stepped up. I was like, well, I'm Baxter's mate. I helped invite a couple of people here. I'll call some shots, because like we're all like we're all on the fence about whether we're going to keep riding or it was too windy or like what was going to happen. But Baxter was gone. And we're like, well, the media guys, like Stu, obviously wanted us to keep riding and was like, the more riding, the better. He didn't say it or anything like that, but you could definitely tell, like, more media is better media. But then the other half of us were like on the fence about whether we wanted to keep riding. And it was a shit show.
I think it was too windy that whole day, to be honest.
Yeah, but like no one would make a call. And like some people were continuing to ride. And then so like some people were still riding. We're like, I guess we'll keep it open. But then the other half of us were like ready to go home. Anyway, doesn't matter. The following day, Baxter and I talked about the fact that Chaos was so kitted up with like ankle braces on, shin pads, knee pads, elbow pads. I don't know if he had elbow pads on. I'm making that one up. But just like very padded up, because you're like, if you're doing tricks, there's a high chance that you're going to hit yourself somewhere. And then I was eyeing up the hip before the step up for like a 270. And I finally committed myself. I was like, I'm going to do it. And I did what's 90 degrees more than a 360? 450.
540.
No, 540 would be 180.
No, so it's a 450. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I did a 450 on the hip and landed dead sideways. and just smashed my shin up as well. And I remember Baxter was there and we were like literally talking about like the best place to go and get it stitched up. But yeah, after that, Baxter and I was just like, yeah, I think from now on we're going to start running shin pads. I haven't yet. I was going to ask you, Baxter.
Yeah.
Literally today, mine cut back open again because like where the scar is, the tissue is like quite soft and like rips open pretty easily. Does yours still rip open?
Nah, mine's all good. I think I'm just going to run shin pads just from here on though. Like if I'm riding jumps. Unless my feet are clipped into the pedals, I'm going to probably run shin pads.
I definitely went off like no foot tricks for probably about like a month or two after that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even from a no foot trick, but I was like, I don't want to run the risk of like slipping a pedal.
I went off of doing no foot tricks until I got shin pads.
Yeah, right. And then it was all G.
And then I got shin pads and then I'm invincible now.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that ties
in really well. Wrapping this thing up?
Yeah.
I was about to say that.
Go with one last question. One last quick question.
Is it for me or is it for Baxter?
For both of you.
What are we listening to?
Exactly. What bangers you got?
Baxter, you go first.
I've been listening to a bunch of like lo-fi hip hop instrumental beats lately. A bit different to my usual metal. And still a lot of like classic rock and roll stuff.
Sick. Jai?
I haven't had the chance, like I had a new job, so I haven't been listening to as much as I used to. But Theo Von, he's a comedian. Yeah. He's got a really good podcast. I just saw he's pushing high in like the rankings, like close to Rogan now, which is pretty cool.
It.
Yeah, he's doing really sweet. He's funny as fuck and has like just has random guests on. Like I listened to one recently with like a carny. Like he's just like I had a guy that works. His family's been in the carnival business for like 100 years. So he like had this guy on to just like talk about what it's like to be a carny. That was really cool. But then I think we talked about it on the podcast like before that I've struggled with mental health issues quite a lot. And a podcast that I've really found that helps with that was The Imperfects. So they're an Australian podcast. I've forgotten the names of the guys that are on it, but it's like basically they get a lot of like celebrities on and they talk about their imperfections. So in the limelight, they might look like they are the most like fantastic, got their life together kind of people, but they talk about the shit that they deal with behind the scenes. Where there was like a radio host that I listened to, and all through her whole time of like being at the peak of her career, she was dealing with the fact that her son had leukemia. And it just really puts things into perspective of like what it's really like to look at people that seem like they've got their shit together. And behind that, everyone has something going on. And that's something that I related to quite a lot because I've definitely got my own shit going on in the background that some of my close friends know about, but not everyone. But it's just tough. So like listening to those guys and finding a lot of things relatable was really good. They've also got a psychologist that comes on like once a month and like dissects a podcast and sort of talks about that quite a lot. So I found that really helpful for self-help kind of stuff. But as far as like music goes, it varies so much depending on the mood. So I won't even dive into musically what I've been listening to. It's just podcasts. But yeah, The Imperfects, I recommend them like 12 out of 3. Like they're amazing.
Perfect.
Sick.
Perfect.
Perfect.
The Imperfects.
Perfect. Rad.
Sick. Thanks so
Yeah.
much. This
That was our shortest podcast ever.
Yeah, it was. Took about as long to organise as what it did to record.
Yeah.
So it's only been 3 years in the making. Thanks so much. Love it. Hopefully one day we'll do this in person.
That'd
No,
be cool.
Notion
That'd be
Jam.
nice. Yeah, we should do a
Notion Jam podcast
Jam,
was
yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. Rad.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna make some dinner.
All right,
boys.
I'll chat to you guys
Thanks so
soon.
much. Have fun.
All right, see
ya.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.